In this video, we're going to break down 2 hours of Family Guy lore to fall asleep to. Let's get started. Seth MacFarlane's 9/11 near-death experience that almost ended Family Guy. The 11th of September 2001 started as an ordinary Tuesday morning for most Americans. For Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, it was supposed to be a simple travel day. He had a ticket booked on American Airlines Flight 11, departing from Boston Logan International Airport at 7:45 a.m., heading to Los Angeles. But a combination of late-night partying, a hangover, and a crucial scheduling mistake saved his life and, unknowingly, the future of an animated show that would go on to become one of television's longest-running comedies. At the time, Family Guy was barely hanging on. The show had premiered in January 1999 to a promising start, debuting right after Super Bowl 23, with 22 million viewers tuning in. But by September 2001, the series was deep into its 3rd season and struggling badly. Fox had already canceled the show once at the end of Season 2, only to reverse that decision 2 months later. The network kept shuffling Family Guy around to different time slots, trying to find somewhere it would work. First it was Sundays, then Thursdays against the powerhouse show Frasier, then Tuesdays against Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Nothing seemed to help the ratings, and the show was losing viewers every week. Seth MacFarlane himself was only 27 years old, the youngest executive producer of a primetime network show in television history. He had achieved this remarkable feat just 2 years earlier when Family Guy first aired. The show was his baby, born from 2 animated short films he had created during his college years at the Rhode Island School of Design. Those shorts, called The Life of Larry and Larry and Steve, caught the attention of Fox executives who saw potential in MacFarlane's humor and animation style. They gave him $50,000 to create a 15-minute pilot, and Family Guy was born. But now, in September 2001, all of that seemed to be slipping away. The show was on life support, and MacFarlane knew it. Despite this uncertainty, he still had professional obligations to fulfill. On the 10th of September 2001, he traveled to Providence, Rhode Island, his old stomping grounds from his college days. He was scheduled to give a speech at his alma mater, the Rhode Island School of Design. This was a familiar place for him, the school where he had studied animation and developed the very ideas that would eventually become Family Guy. After finishing his speech, MacFarlane did what many young professionals do when returning to their college town. He went out. He met up with friends, had more than a few drinks, and stayed up far later than he should have, especially considering he had an early morning flight the next day. By the time he finally called it a night, it was well past any reasonable hour for someone who needed to catch a 7:45 a.m. flight. But here's where the story takes a critical turn. MacFarlane's travel agent had made a mistake. When booking the flight, the agent had written down the departure time as 8:15 a.m. instead of the actual departure time of 7:45 a.m. This error, combined with MacFarlane's hangover and exhaustion from the previous night, created a perfect storm of circumstances. When MacFarlane woke up on the morning of September 11, he was already running behind schedule, but he thought he had more time than he actually did. He rushed to get ready, probably nursing a headache from the night before, and made his way to Logan International Airport in Boston. When he arrived at the airport, he discovered the terrible truth. The departure time was not 8:15 a.m. as his travel agent had told him. It was 7:45 a.m., and by the time he got to the gate, it was approximately 7:55 a.m. He was 10 to 15 minutes too late. The gate had already closed. The plane was gone. American Airlines Flight 11 had departed without him. In that moment, MacFarlane was probably frustrated, maybe even angry at himself for oversleeping and at his travel agent for the wrong information. Missing a flight is annoying. It means rebooking, waiting around the airport, possibly paying fees. It's inconvenient and irritating. He likely had no idea that this inconvenience had just saved his life. According to MacFarlane's own accounts in later interviews, he went to the airport lounge to figure out his next steps. He needed to rebook his flight and get to Los Angeles somehow. While he was sitting there, probably still a bit hungover and definitely annoyed about missing his flight, he fell asleep in a chair. He woke up about 45 minutes later to a commotion. People in the lounge were gathering around television screens, and there was a sense of panic and confusion in the air. When MacFarlane looked at the screens, he saw something unbelievable. A plane had crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Smoke was billowing out of the building. News anchors were trying to make sense of what they were seeing, speculating about what could have caused such a horrific accident. Then, as MacFarlane and everyone else watched in horror, a second plane appeared on screen and crashed directly into the South Tower. This was no accident. America was under attack. The news networks began reporting which flights had been hijacked. And that's when MacFarlane's blood must have run cold. American Airlines Flight 1, the flight from Boston to Los Angeles. His flight, the flight he had missed by just 10 or 15 minutes, was the first plane to hit the World Trade Center. At 8:46 a.m., just 51 minutes after takeoff, hijackers had flown the Boeing 767 directly into the North Tower. MacFarlane later recounted this moment in an interview with Piers Morgan. He said he turned to the person sitting next to him in the lounge and said, "My God, that was the flight I was supposed to be on. I was late. I missed it." The reality of what had just happened must have been overwhelming. If he had made it to the gate on time, if he hadn't stayed out so late the night before, if his travel agent hadn't given him the wrong departure time, he would have been on that plane. He would have been one of the 92 people aboard who died when the plane struck the tower. Among those who died on Flight 11 were people from all walks of life. There were business people, flight attendants, pilots, and tourists. One particularly notable passenger was David Angel, a television producer who had worked on the sitcom Frasier. Angel and his wife Lynn were traveling together on that flight. The Frasier episode that aired after the attacks was dedicated to their memory. It's a sobering thought that MacFarlane, another television producer, could easily have been on that same list of victims. Another person who was scheduled to be on Flight 11 was actor Mark Wahlberg. Unlike MacFarlane, Wahlberg had changed his plans and canceled his ticket the day before the attacks. Both men were incredibly lucky, though their survival came from different circumstances. But MacFarlane's story carries an extra layer of dark irony. He literally overslept death. A hangover saved his life. The immediate impact of this experience on MacFarlane is hard to fully measure. In interviews, he has spoken about it with a certain detachment, perhaps because the alternative is too heavy to dwell on. When talking with Rove McManus, he explained the situation matter-of-factly, noting that he was drinking the night before and overslept. In the Piers Morgan interview, he described waking up in the lounge and watching the horror unfold on television. He has acknowledged the surreal nature of it all, but he hasn't delved deeply into any survivor's guilt or profound philosophical changes in his life. What's particularly interesting is how this event didn't seem to dramatically alter MacFarlane's approach to comedy or his willingness to push boundaries. Family Guy has made jokes about September 11 over the years, which some might find surprising given MacFarlane's personal connection to the attacks. In 2011, an episode aired that satirized the events of that day, a full decade after MacFarlane's brush with death. This shows a certain resilience, or perhaps a belief that comedy can exist even in the darkest of spaces. For Family Guy as a show, MacFarlane's survival had enormous implications that wouldn't become clear for several years. At the time of the attacks, Family Guy was still canceled, or at least on its last legs. The third season finale aired in early 2002, and that seemed to be the end. If MacFarlane had died on September 11, that would have been it. The show would have ended with 3 seasons, maybe gaining some posthumous cult status as the creation of a 9/11 victim, but it would have been finished. Instead, something else happened. While Family Guy was off the air, Cartoon Network's Adult Swim started airing reruns of the show late at night, and people watched. A lot of people. The show became Adult Swim's highest-rated program, averaging around 1.9 million viewers. At the same time, the DVD sets of Family Guy's first 3 seasons became surprise bestsellers. The Season 1 and 2 sets sold 2.2 million copies, making them the second best-selling television DVDs of all time at that point, right behind Chappelle's Show. This unprecedented success in reruns and DVD sales caught Fox's attention. In 2004, they made television history by bringing Family Guy back from cancellation based solely on DVD sales and syndication ratings. No show had ever done that before. MacFarlane, the man who had cheated death 3 years earlier, suddenly found himself back in business with his show renewed for a 4th season. The premiere of Season 4 Inches, May 2005, drew 11.85 million viewers. Family Guy was no longer a struggling show that Fox couldn't figure out what to do with. It was a hit, and it has remained on the air ever since, running for over 2 decades now. MacFarlane went on to create other shows like American Dad and The Cleveland Show. He voiced multiple characters, produced movies, and became one of the most successful figures in animation. None of this would have been possible if MacFarlane had caught Flight 11. American Dad, which premiered in 2005, would never have existed. The Cleveland Show wouldn't have happened. The movies Ted and Ted 2 wouldn't have been made. The science fiction series, The Orville, would just be someone else's unrealized dream. The entire landscape of adult animation on television would look different. It's worth noting that MacFarlane has never exploited this story for sympathy or attention. He mentions it when asked, but he doesn't lead with it. He doesn't use it as a marketing tool or a way to add gravitas to his work. It's simply a fact of his biography, a moment when chance and poor planning resulted in the luckiest outcome imaginable. The entertainment industry has a long history of near misses and what-ifs, but MacFarlane's story stands out because of how close the call was. 10 minutes. That's all that separated him from death. 10 minutes that came down to a hangover and a scheduling error. It's the kind of coincidence that seems too perfect for fiction, yet it's completely true. For fans of Family Guy, there's something almost cosmic about the whole thing. The show that MacFarlane created is known for its dark humor, its willingness to joke about death and tragedy, and its irreverent approach to serious topics. The creator of this show survived one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in history because he partied too hard and got bad information from a travel agent. It's the kind of absurd, darkly comic twist that could be a cutaway gag on the show itself. The 11th of September 2001 changed America forever. For Seth MacFarlane, it was the day he didn't die. And because he didn't die, millions of people got to keep watching a show about a dysfunctional cartoon family in Rhode Island. Family Guy survived because its creator survived, and its creator survived because sometimes, just sometimes, being late is the best thing that can happen to you. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the double cancellation and DVD resurrection miracle. Television history is filled with shows that got canceled too soon. Fans complain, networks move on, and that's usually the end of the story. But Family Guy didn't follow the usual script. Instead, it became the first show in television history to come back from the dead based purely on DVD sales and reruns. The journey from cancellation to resurrection is a story of bad timing, loyal fans, and a business decision that changed how networks thought about their canceled shows forever. When Family Guy premiered on the 31st of January 1999, right after Super Bowl III, it looked like Fox had found its next big animated hit. 22 million people tuned in to watch the adventures of Peter Griffin and his dysfunctional family in the fictional town of Quohog, Rhode Island. The premiere numbers were incredible, and Fox executives were thrilled. Here was a new animated comedy that could potentially compete with The Simpsons, their flagship animated series that had been dominating Sunday nights for nearly a decade. But television is a tricky business, and a strong premiere doesn't guarantee long-term success. After the Super Bowl episode, Family Guy returned in April 1999 with the rest of its first season. The ratings were decent, nothing spectacular, but good enough to earn a second season renewal. The show finished its first season ranked 33rd in the Nielsen ratings, which isn't great, but it wasn't terrible either for a brand new show still finding its audience. Then came season 2, and this is where the problems really started. Fox decided to move Family Guy from its Sunday night time slot to Thursday nights at 9 p.m. This might seem like a simple schedule change, but in the television landscape of the late 1992s and early 2000s, it was practically a death sentence. Thursday nights belonged to NBC. They had a programming block called Must-See TV that dominated the ratings with shows like Friends, Frasier, ER, and Will and Grace. Everyone in America who watched television on Thursday nights was watching NBC. Fox put Family Guy up against Frasier, a critically acclaimed sitcom that was one of the most popular shows on television. Frasier had won multiple Emmy Awards and had a devoted audience that had been watching for years. Family Guy, a brand new animated comedy with crude humor and unconventional storytelling, didn't stand a chance. The ratings dropped significantly. Week after week, Family Guy lost viewers as people chose to watch the established hit instead of the new show. Fox panicked and moved the show again, this time to Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. but the new time slot was just as bad, maybe even worse. Now, Family Guy was competing against ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a game show phenomenon that was pulling in massive ratings. At the height of its popularity, Millionaire was airing multiple nights per week and attracting tens of millions of viewers. Once again, Family Guy couldn't compete. The ratings continued to fall, and by the end of season 2, the show had dropped to 114th place in the Nielsen ratings. In the spring of 2000, Fox made the decision that seemed inevitable. Family Guy was canceled. After just 2 seasons, the show was done. Seth MacFarlane was 26 years old, and his first major television series was over. The network announced the cancellation, and fans were disappointed. But this kind of thing happened all the time. Shows got canceled, and people moved on to the next thing. But then, something unexpected happened. Fox reversed its decision. Just 2 months after announcing the cancellation, the network changed its mind and renewed Family Guy for a 3rd season. This was unusual but not unheard of. Sometimes networks cancel shows in the heat of the moment and then reconsider when they look at their overall schedule and realize they need content. So Family Guy got a 3rd season, and fans were relieved. Unfortunately, the 3rd season didn't solve the show's problems. Fox continued to shuffle Family Guy around the schedule, desperately trying to find a time slot where it would work. The show went back to Thursday nights, where it once again faced tough competition, this time from both Survivor on CBS and Friends on NBC. No matter where Fox put Family Guy, it seemed to land in a slot where it had to compete with the biggest shows on television. The constant time slot changes made it nearly impossible for viewers to find the show. This was before the age of streaming services and DVRs in every home. If you wanted to watch a show, you had to know when it was on and make sure you were in front of your TV at that exact time. When networks kept moving shows around, viewers got frustrated and gave up trying to follow them. That's exactly what happened with Family Guy. People who enjoyed the show couldn't keep track of when it aired, and the audience kept shrinking. By the fall of 2002, Fox had seen enough. The ratings were still poor, the show wasn't attracting the advertisers Fox wanted, and the network decided it was time to pull the plug for good. This time, there would be no reversal, no last-minute reprieve. Family Guy was canceled for the 2nd time, and this time it seemed permanent. The 3rd season finale aired, and 1 episode didn't even get a chance to air on Fox at all. It would eventually premiere on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim in 2003, but as far as Fox was concerned, Family Guy was finished. Seth MacFarlane moved on. He continued working in animation and started developing other projects. The cast and crew found other jobs. The story of Family Guy appeared to be over. It would be remembered as a show with potential that never quite found its audience. Another example of a series that got shuffled around until it died. But something was happening that nobody at Fox was paying attention to. In 2003, Cartoon Network made a deal to air Family Guy reruns on Adult Swim, their late-night programming block aimed at adults. Adult Swim had launched in 2001 and was building a reputation for edgy, unconventional comedy. Shows like Aqua, Teen Hunger Force, and C-Lab 2021 had found an audience among young adults who stayed up late and appreciated weird, subversive humor. Family Guy seemed like a perfect fit for this audience. When Adult Swim started airing Family Guy reruns late at night, something remarkable happened. People watched. Lots of people. The show that had struggled to find viewers on Fox suddenly became a hit on Cartoon Network. According to USA Today, Family Guy was averaging around 1.9 million viewers on Adult Swim. Entertainment Weekly reported that the show boosted Adult Swim's viewership by 239%. These weren't just good numbers for a late-night cable show. These were incredible numbers that suggested Family Guy had a much larger audience than Fox had ever realized. The Adult Swim audience was different from the typical Fox viewer. They were younger, they appreciated the show's irreverent humor and pop culture references, and they told their friends about it. Word of mouth spread, and more people started tuning in. College students would gather in dorm rooms to watch. Young professionals would come home from bars and put on Adult Swim. Family Guy was building a cult following, and it was happening entirely through reruns on cable television. At the same time, something else was happening that would prove even more significant. Fox had released the first 3 seasons of Family Guy on DVD, and the sales numbers were shocking. The Season 1 and Season 2 DVD sets sold 2.2 million copies combined. According to the Christian Science Monitor, this made them the second best-selling television DVDs of all time, right behind the first season of Chappelle's Show. The Season 3 DVD also sold over 1 million copies. These weren't just good sales. These were blockbuster numbers. At a time when DVD sales were becoming a major revenue stream for television studios, Family Guy was proving to be a gold mine. People were buying the DVDs, watching the episodes over and over, and introducing the show to friends who had never seen it. The DVDs came with special features, commentary tracks, and deleted scenes that made fans feel like they were getting something special. It wasn't just about watching the episodes, it was about owning a piece of something they loved. Fox executives started to notice. Here was a show they had canceled, a show they had given up on, and it was making money, lots of money. The Adult Swim ratings proved there was an audience. The DVD sales proved that audience was willing to spend money, and the buzz around the show suggested it was becoming a cultural phenomenon, at least among a certain demographic. In May 2004, Fox made an announcement that stunned the television industry. They were bringing Family Guy back, not just for a few episodes to wrap up loose ends, but for an entire season. Fox ordered 35 new episodes, and Family Guy would return to the network's Sunday night animation block. The decision was based almost entirely on the show's performance on DVD and in syndication. Family Guy was officially the first television show in history to be revived because of DVD sales. Seth MacFarlane was brought back to run the show. The original cast returned to voice their characters. Alex Borstein came back as Lois. Seth Green returned as Chris. Mila Kunis reprised her role as Meg, and MacFarlane himself returned to voice Peter, Stewie, and Brian. The writer's room was reassembled, and production began on new episodes. The show that had been dead for nearly 3 years was suddenly alive again. The 4th season premiere, titled North by North Quohog, aired on the 1st of May 2005. The episode directly addressed the cancellation, with Peter telling his family they had been canceled and then listing all the shows Fox had put on the air instead of Family Guy. It was a funny, self-aware moment that acknowledged what had happened while also taking a shot at the network for canceling the show in the first place. The episode drew 11.85 million viewers, according to the New York Times. That was more viewers than any episode in the show's original run had ever attracted. Family Guy was no longer a struggling show that Fox didn't know what to do with. It was a proven hit with a devoted fan base and strong commercial potential. The resurrection changed everything, not just for Family Guy, but for how networks thought about canceled shows. Before Family Guy, a cancellation was usually final. After Family Guy, networks started paying more attention to DVD sales, streaming numbers, and syndication ratings. Shows like Arrested Development and Futurama would later get second chances based on their performance after cancellation, following the path that Family Guy had pioneered. The success of the revival also demonstrated something important about television audiences. The traditional Nielsen ratings system, which measured who was watching shows during their original broadcast, wasn't capturing the full picture anymore. People were watching shows in different ways, at different times, and on different platforms. Family Guy had failed in the traditional ratings, but succeeded when people could watch it on their own schedule, whether that was late at night on Adult Swim or on DVD in their living rooms. For Seth MacFarlane personally, the revival was life-changing. When Family Guy was canceled the second time, he was just another young writer and producer who had created a show that didn't work out. When it came back, he became one of the most powerful figures in animation. Fox gave him the resources to create more shows, leading to American Dad in 2005 and The Cleveland Show in 2009. He became a multimillionaire and expanded into movies, music, and other ventures. None of that would have been possible without the DVD sales that brought Family Guy back to life. The DVD resurrection also created a new business model for animated comedies. Shows like Futurama, which Comedy Central revived after Fox canceled it, followed the same pattern. Strong DVD sales and cable reruns proved there was an audience, and the network brought it back. Even today, streaming services look at viewership data for canceled shows to decide if they're worth reviving. Family Guy proved that a show's value isn't just about its ratings during the original broadcast. It's about the long-term audience and the potential for revenue across multiple platforms. Looking back, the double cancellation and resurrection of Family Guy seems almost miraculous. The odds were against it at every turn. The show couldn't find an audience during its original run. Fox canceled it twice. By all normal standards, that should have been the end. But a combination of factors, the Adult Swim reruns, the record-breaking DVD sales, and the growing cult fan base, created a perfect storm that brought the show back from the dead. Today, Family Guy has aired more than 400 episodes across more than 20 seasons. It's one of the longest-running animated series in television history. The show has won multiple Emmy Awards, spawned countless memes and cultural references, and become a staple of Fox's programming. And it all happened because the show found a second life on DVD and late-night cable, proving that sometimes the path to success isn't a straight line. Sometimes you have to die twice before you can truly live. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Brian's death, Vinny's introduction, and the fastest petition ever. On the 24th of November 2013, Family Guy aired an episode that shocked millions of viewers around the world. The episode was called Life of Brian, and it did something that animated sitcoms almost never do. It killed off one of the main characters. Not as a joke, not as a dream sequence, but for real. Brian Griffin, the talking dog who had been part of the show since the very first episode in 1999, was dead, and fans were not happy about it. The episode started like many Family Guy episodes do, with Stewie and Brian getting into trouble with time travel. Stewie had a time machine that he used in various episodes to go back and forth through history. In this particular episode, they accidentally changed the past by giving guns to Native Americans in colonial Jamestown. This created an alternate timeline where Native Americans were running everything in modern America instead of the Europeans who had colonized the land. Brian was understandably upset with Stewie for messing up history. The two friends argued about it, with Brian pointing out that Stewie was always saying you should never alter the past, but Stewie kept doing it anyway. They managed to fix the timeline and get everything back to normal, but Stewie was tired of all the close calls and dangerous situations that came from time traveling. So he made a decision. He destroyed his time machine completely. He took it to a junkyard and got rid of it, thinking this would keep them safe from any more time travel disasters. While they were at the junkyard, Stewie and Brian found a street hockey net. They thought it would be fun to take it home and play hockey in the street, just like kids do in neighborhoods all across America. They set up the net in front of the Griffin house on Spooner Street. Stewie went inside to get his knee pads because he wanted to be safe while playing, and that's when everything went horribly wrong. While Stewie was inside the house, a car came speeding down the street. The driver wasn't paying attention, or maybe they were drunk, or maybe it was just a terrible accident. The show never really explained exactly what happened, but the car hit Brian, and it hit him hard. When Stewie came back outside with his knee pads, he saw his best friend lying in the street, badly injured. The family rushed Brian to the veterinarian, hoping the doctors could save him. Lois, Peter, Meg, Chris, and Stewie all gathered around as the vet examined Brian, but the injuries were too severe. There was nothing anyone could do. The vet told the Griffin family that Brian's injuries were fatal, which means he was going to die. They had a few moments to say goodbye to him before he passed away. The scene was surprisingly emotional for a show that usually focused on comedy and outrageous jokes. Each member of the Griffin family got to say their final words to Brian, and then Brian, struggling to speak, told his family something simple but powerful. He said, "You've given me a wonderful life. I love you all." Those were his last words. Then Brian died, right there in the veterinarian's office, with his family surrounding him. The episode showed the family holding a funeral for Brian. Peter gave a eulogy, which is a speech people give at funerals to remember the person who died. Peter was clearly struggling with his emotions. He told everyone that Brian wasn't just his dog, he was his best friend in the whole world. He said Brian was smart, loyal, and like a brother to him. Peter ended by saying he would spend the rest of his life missing Brian. Lois agreed, telling Peter and everyone else that they would all miss Brian very much. But the episode didn't end there. The family needed a new dog, so they went to a pet store and adopted a dog named Vinny. Vinny was very different from Brian. He had a thick Italian-American accent and a completely different personality. He was street smart and rough around the edges, nothing like the intellectual, educated Brian who loved literature and culture. Stewie was not happy about Vinny. While the rest of the family seemed to be moving on and accepting this new dog, Stewie felt like they were forgetting about Brian too quickly. Stewie had a breakdown, yelling at Vinny and saying that everyone was so thrilled with him that they had forgotten all about Brian. Stewie shouted that Brian was his best friend, and you're not supposed to lose your best friend at his age. You're not supposed to lose your best friend ever. Vinny tried to comfort Stewie by sharing his own story of loss. He told Stewie about an old man named Leo who he had lived with before being put in the pet store. Leo had been Vinny's whole world, and when Leo died, it was really hard for Vinny to deal with. Vinny explained that when he saw the Griffin family looking for a dog in the pet store, he sensed they were going through the same feelings of loss that he had experienced. He thought maybe they were meant to find each other and help each other through their grief. The episode ended with a time card showing that a whole month had passed since Brian's death. Lois almost set a place at the dinner table for Brian out of habit, showing that the family was still adjusting to life without him. Stewie suggested they get rid of the doggy door since Brian wasn't there anymore, but Chris kept getting stuck in it trying to crawl through. Life was going on, but it was different. Brian was gone, and Vinny was the new family dog. For viewers watching at home, this was absolutely shocking. Family Guy had been on the air for over a decade at this point, and Brian had been there from the beginning. He was one of the most popular characters on the show. He had his own storylines, his own personality, and his own fans who loved him, and now he was just gone. Dead. Replaced by a new character that nobody had asked for and nobody particularly wanted. Within hours of the episode airing on the East Coast, something remarkable started happening on the internet. Someone created a petition on change.org, a website where people can start campaigns to try to change things they don't like. The petition was titled something along the lines of asking Seth MacFarlane and Fox to bring Brian Griffin back to Family Guy. The petition explained that Brian was an important part of the show, that he added wit and sophistication, and that the show would lose viewers if he wasn't brought back. What happened next was extraordinary. The petition started gaining signatures at an incredibly fast rate, not just hundreds of signatures, but thousands. And not over days or weeks, but within hours. People were so upset about Brian's death that they were going online immediately after watching the episode to sign the petition. They were sharing it on Facebook, tweeting about it, and telling all their friends. The petition became one of the fastest growing entertainment-related petitions in the history of change.org. The fan who started the petition, a man named Aaron Thompson, also created a Facebook page called R.I.P. Brian Griffin from Family Guy. This gave fans a place to gather and share their grief, their anger, and their memories of the character. People posted their favorite Brian moments, talked about why they loved the character, and expressed their frustration with the show's creators for killing him off. The backlash was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with reactions. Some people were genuinely sad, feeling like they had lost a character they had grown up with over 14 years of watching the show. Other people were angry, feeling like the writers had made a terrible decision and were ruining the show. Think pieces and articles started appearing on entertainment websites, debating whether killing Brian was a bold creative choice or a cheap publicity stunt. Television critics had mixed reactions to the episode. Some praised it for taking an emotional risk and showing that Family Guy could do more than just crude jokes and random cutaway gags. They appreciated that the show treated Brian's death with some level of seriousness and gave the characters real moments to grieve. Other critics hated it, feeling like the death scene was manipulative and that introducing Vinny so quickly undermined any emotional weight the death might have had. The creators of Family Guy watched all of this unfold with what appears to have been genuine surprise. In January 2014, about 2 months after the episode aired, Seth MacFarlane gave an interview where he talked about the fan reaction. He admitted that it surprised all of them. They knew killing Brian would create some reaction, but they didn't expect the level of anger and upset that actually happened. MacFarlane said, and these are his actual words, "We were all very surprised, in a good way, that people still cared enough about that character to be that angry. We thought it would create a little bit of a stir, but the rage wasn't something we counted on." What MacFarlane and the writers seemed to have miscalculated was how much viewers were attached to Brian as a character. Family Guy is a show where terrible things happen all the time. Characters get hurt, they die in cutaway gags, the entire town gets destroyed and then is fine the next episode. Nothing has permanent consequences in the world of Family Guy. Except this time, it seemed like the consequences were permanent. Stewie had destroyed his time machine, which meant he couldn't go back and save Brian. The episode specifically showed Stewie trying to rebuild the machine, but being unable to get the parts he needed. It appeared that Brian was really, truly, permanently dead. For fans, this was devastating. Brian wasn't just any character. He was often the voice of reason on the show. He was intelligent, well-read, and could have actual conversations about art, politics, and culture. Yes, he was also pretentious and had his own flaws, but he balanced out the chaos of the other characters. His friendship with Stewie had produced some of the show's best episodes, including the Rhode 2 episodes, where the two of them would go on adventures together. Losing Brian felt like losing an essential part of what made Family Guy work. The petition continued to grow. Reports at the time suggested it reached well over 100,000 signatures, though exact numbers varied depending on the source. What's certain is that it became a news story in itself. Entertainment websites covered the petition, television news programs mentioned it, and it became one of the most talked about moments in television that week. But here's the thing that made many fans even angrier. Brian didn't stay dead. Just 2 episodes later, in the Christmas episode appropriately titled Christmas Guy, Stewie found a way to save Brian. He encountered a past version of himself who still had a working time machine, borrowed the return pad, went back in time, and pushed Brian out of the way of the car. Brian was alive again, and it was as if his death had never happened. Vinny appeared briefly in 1 or 2 later episodes, but was mostly forgotten. After Brian came back, Seth MacFarlane tweeted something that upset a lot of fans even more. He wrote, "And thus endeth our warm, fuzzy holiday lesson. Never take those you love for granted, for they can be gone in a flash." Then he added, "I mean, you didn't really think we'd kill off Brian, did you? Jesus, we'd have to be fucking high." Many fans felt like this proved the whole thing had been a publicity stunt, a cheap trick to get people talking about the show and boost ratings. Looking back now, the whole Brian death saga has become one of the most memorable controversies in Family Guy's history. It showed just how much power fans have in the age of social media. A petition created within hours of an episode airing, signed by tens of thousands of people, became national news and put real pressure on the show's creators. Whether that pressure actually influenced the decision to bring Brian back is unclear. The writers might have always planned to resurrect him after a few episodes, or they might have changed their plans because of the backlash. We may never know for sure. What we do know is that Brian's death and quick resurrection demonstrated something important about television in the modern era. Shows can't just do whatever they want and expect fans to accept it quietly. Social media gives viewers a voice and a platform to organize and push back against creative decisions they don't like. The Change.org petition, the Facebook groups, the Twitter outrage, all of it showed that fans felt ownership over these characters and weren't going to let them go without a fight. The episode Life of Brian has become a case study in how not to handle a major character death on a long-running comedy series. If you're going to kill someone off, you need to commit to it or risk looking like you're just playing with your audience's emotions for ratings. The fact that Brian came back so quickly made the whole thing feel hollow and manipulative. The emotional funeral scene, Stewie's grief, Peter's heartfelt eulogy, all of it felt less meaningful, knowing that it would all be undone within 2 weeks of broadcast time. Today, Brian Griffin is still alive and well on Family Guy. The show continues to air new episodes, and Brian continues to be one of the main characters, having adventures and getting into trouble just like he did before Life of Brian ever aired. Vinny, the Italian dog who was supposed to replace him, is mostly forgotten, appearing only occasionally in quick cameos or references. The whole incident has become just another strange chapter in the long, weird history of Family Guy, a reminder of a time when the show killed its most beloved character and then brought him back after fans revolted en masse. The petition may not have saved Brian, but it certainly made television history as one of the fastest and most passionate fan responses ever seen in the world of animated comedy. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the banned abortion episode that never aired in America. Television networks have rules about what they can and cannot show on the air. Sometimes these rules are about violence or bad language. Sometimes they're about topics that might upset viewers or make advertisers uncomfortable. In 2010, Fox made the decision to ban a Family Guy episode from ever airing in the United States. The reason was simple but controversial. The The episode was about abortion, and Fox decided that American audiences should never see it. The episode in question is called Partial Terms of Endearment. It was supposed to be the final episode of Family Guy's 8th season, airing sometime in the spring of 2010. The writers wrote it, the animators created it, the voice actors recorded their lines, and everything was ready to go. But Fox executives watched the finished episode and made a decision. They would not broadcast it on American television. Not then, not ever. The story of Partial Terms of Endearment begins in a fairly normal way for Family Guy. Lois Griffin is approached by an old friend from her college days. The friend's name is Naomi, and she comes to visit Lois with her husband Dale. They have dinner together, they reminisce about old times, and then Naomi and Dale ask Lois for a huge favor. They want to have a baby, but Naomi cannot carry a child herself for medical reasons. They ask Lois if she would be willing to be a surrogate mother for them. Being a surrogate mother means carrying someone else's baby in your body and then giving the baby to them after it's born. It's something that people do to help friends or family members who cannot have children on their own. Lois thinks about it and talks it over with Peter. Peter is against the idea at first, making jokes and raising objections like he usually does. But eventually, Lois decides she wants to help her old friend, and she agrees to be the surrogate. The process begins. Lois goes through in vitro fertilization, which is a medical procedure where doctors help someone get pregnant. The procedure works, and Lois becomes pregnant with Naomi and Dale's baby. Everything seems to be going according to plan. Lois is going to carry the baby for 9 months and then give the child to Naomi and Dale, who will raise it as their own. It's an act of kindness from one friend to another. But then, tragedy strikes. While Lois is pregnant, Naomi and Dale are driving somewhere when they get into a terrible car accident. Both of them die. Suddenly, Lois is pregnant with a baby that has no parents to go to. The biological parents, the people who were supposed to raise this child, are dead. Lois is left carrying a baby that she never intended to keep and raise herself. This is where the episode becomes controversial. Lois has to make a decision. She can either continue with the pregnancy and have the baby, then figure out what to do with a child that she and Peter never planned to raise, or she can have an abortion and end the pregnancy. It's a difficult personal choice that millions of women have faced in real life, and Family Guy decided to tackle it head on. The episode shows Lois struggling with this decision. She talks to Peter about it, and they discuss the options. The episode presents both sides of the abortion debate in America. It shows people who believe abortion is wrong and should not be allowed, and it shows people who believe women should have the right to choose what happens to their own bodies. Peter gets influenced by pro-life activists, people who believe abortion is morally wrong. He tries to convince Lois not to have an abortion. But the episode doesn't just show one side. It also shows the pro-choice perspective. The belief that women should be able to make their own decisions about their pregnancies without the government or other people telling them what to do. Lois considers all of these viewpoints as she tries to figure out what the right choice is for her situation. In the end, Lois makes her decision. The episode shows her choosing to have an abortion. She goes through with the procedure, and the pregnancy is terminated. This was the part that made Fox executives extremely nervous. American television rarely shows characters having abortions, especially on comedy shows. It's considered too controversial, too likely to upset viewers, and make advertisers pull their commercials from the show. Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, announced at the San Diego Comic-Con in 2009 that the episode would not be airing on Fox. This was before the episode was even supposed to broadcast, so fans knew well in advance that they wouldn't be seeing it on television. MacFarlane explained that Fox had banned the episode and that it would instead be released on DVD. He seemed frustrated by the decision, but there wasn't much he could do about it. Fox owns Family Guy, and Fox decides what does and doesn't air on their network. The reasons for the ban were both creative and financial. Fox executives were worried about the backlash that would come from broadcasting an episode about abortion. In America, abortion is one of the most divisive political issues. People have incredibly strong feelings about it, and those feelings often split along religious and political lines. Fox knew that broadcasting an episode where a main character has an abortion would lead to protests, angry phone calls, boycotts, and sponsors pulling their advertisements. Kevin Riley, who was the president of Fox Entertainment at the time, gave an interview where he explained the decision. He said that of all the controversial issues that television can address, abortion is the one that seems to be the biggest hot-button topic. He pointed out that this was happening at a time when the economy was really struggling, and Fox was having difficult conversations with advertisers who were already nervous about spending money on commercials. Riley's exact words were, "This one felt like it could cause trouble, and it was just not worth it." What's interesting is that Riley also said he personally thought the episode handled the subject matter fine. He noted that advertisers know what they're getting when they buy commercial time during Family Guy. The show has always pushed boundaries and tackled controversial topics, but abortion was apparently a bridge too far, at least for the American market. The ban wasn't just on Fox's main network, either. Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, which had helped save Family Guy by airing reruns when the show was canceled, also refused to broadcast partial terms of endearment. This was significant because Adult Swim had aired another banned Family Guy episode, When You Wish Upon a Weinstein, which Fox initially refused to broadcast because they worried it might be seen as anti-Semitic. But even Adult Swim, which built its reputation on edgy and controversial content, drew the line at the abortion episode. However, the episode did air in other countries. The BBC, Britain's public broadcasting network, aired Partial Terms of Endearment on BBC 3 on the 20th of June 2010. This was during the normal time slot for Family Guy in the United Kingdom at 10:30 p.m. The British audience got to see the episode that American viewers were banned from watching. Reports say that about 1 million homes in the UK watched the episode when it aired. British critics and viewers who saw it generally gave it positive reviews. The episode was also released on DVD as promised. Fox put it on the Season 8 DVD box set, so Americans who wanted to see it could buy the DVD and watch it at home. There was also a special DVD release that included just this episode along with another special called Seth and Alex's Almost Live comedy show. So, while the episode never appeared on American television, it wasn't completely hidden away. People who really wanted to see it could find it. They just had to pay for it. Seth MacFarlane was not happy about the ban, and he made his feelings known in interviews. He talked to the New York Times about it and argued against banning controversial material. His point was that abortion shouldn't be treated any differently than other controversial topics the show had covered. He said, "There's nothing about it that should be any different than doing an episode about gay marriage or an episode about the oil spill." MacFarlane felt that comedy and satire are important ways to open discussions about social issues, to make different points of view more accessible, and to expose ridiculous arguments by making fun of them. MacFarlane's argument makes sense in the context of what Family Guy has always tried to do. The show has never shied away from controversial topics. It's made episodes about religion, politics, race, sexuality, disability, and just about every other sensitive subject you can think of. The whole point of the show, in many ways, is to push boundaries and make people laugh at things that are normally considered too serious or too offensive to joke about. From MacFarlane's perspective, banning an episode about abortion was Fox admitting that some topics are off limits, even for a show that's supposed to have no limits. The critics who did get to see Partial Terms of Endearment generally praised it. They appreciated that the episode actually tried to present both sides of the abortion debate instead of just pushing one political viewpoint. The episode shows pro-life arguments and pro-choice arguments, and it lets viewers see the complexity of the issue through Lois's eyes as she tries to make a difficult decision. Some critics felt this was Family Guy at its most mature and thoughtful, tackling a real issue with some level of seriousness instead of just going for easy jokes. Cindy White from IGN, a popular entertainment website, gave the DVD release a review where she had mixed feelings. She criticized the episode for relying on shock value, which Family Guy does a lot, but she also appreciated that the writers didn't cop out in the end and actually picked a side. White pointed out that it was hard to believe the writers ever expected this episode to make it to air, even for Family Guy. She gave it a 7 out of 10 rating. Another critic, Mary Elizabeth Williams from Salon, wrote about how significant it was that Family Guy, of all shows, was one of the few willing to address abortion on television. She found it almost funny that this show, which she called doofy and generally unfunny and full of sophomoric jokes, turned out to be brave enough to tackle a topic that more serious shows avoided. Williams pointed out that Fox wouldn't air the episode, which she saw as proof that America still had a long way to go before television could honestly discuss what millions of American women go through. The episode being banned also says something about the difference between how America and other countries view abortion. The fact that BBC felt comfortable airing it at 10:30 p.m. on a regular television channel shows that the UK has a different cultural attitude toward the topic. In Britain, abortion is legal and less politically divisive than it is in America. British viewers might find the episode controversial, but not so controversial that it needed to be banned from television entirely. Years later, when Family Guy came to the Disney Plus streaming service in February 2021, Partial Terms of Endearment was notably absent. It was the only Family Guy episode that Disney chose not to include on the streaming platform. Even though people could buy it on DVD, even though it had aired in other countries, Disney decided that American streaming audiences shouldn't have access to it. This happened more than a decade after the episode was created, showing that the controversy around it hadn't gone away. The ban of Partial Terms of Endearment is part of a larger pattern in American television. Networks are very careful about abortion storylines, especially in comedies. Dramas sometimes address it, usually in very serious and heavy-handed ways. But comedies almost never touch it because mixing humor with such a divisive topic seems impossible to most network executives. They worry about protests from religious groups, boycotts from conservative organizations, and advertisers pulling out because they don't want their products associated with abortion. This makes Partial Terms of Endearment somewhat unique in television history. It's a comedy episode from a show known for crude humor and offensive jokes that seriously engaged with the abortion debate and showed a character actually going through with the procedure. Most shows that address abortion either have the character decide not to go through with it or have some convenient plot twist that makes the decision unnecessary, like a miscarriage. Family Guy didn't do that. Lois made a choice, followed through with it, and the episode ended with that choice standing. For fans of Family Guy who have seen the episode, opinions are divided. Some people think it's one of the show's best episodes, proof that the writers can handle serious topics with thought and nuance when they want to. Other fans think it's preachy and not very funny, too serious for a show that's supposed to make people laugh. And still others think the whole thing was a publicity stunt, a way to create controversy and get people talking about the show. What's undeniable is that the ban worked exactly as Fox intended. The episode didn't air, there were no major protests against Fox, no advertisers pulled their support, and the network avoided what could have been a public relations nightmare. At the same time, the episode became famous precisely because it was banned. More people probably know about Partial Terms of Endearment than would have ever known about it if Fox had just quietly aired it late one night and moved on. The controversy made it noteworthy. The episode remains banned from American television to this day. New viewers discovering Family Guy on streaming services will never see it unless they specifically seek it out on DVD or through other means. It stands as an example of how far American networks will go to avoid certain topics, and how even a show like Family Guy, which prides itself on being offensive and boundary-pushing, has to answer to network executives who decide what is and isn't acceptable for American audiences. In the end, Partial Terms of Endearment is a strange artifact in the history of Family Guy. It's an episode that exists, that people can watch if they really want to, but that American television has decided should never be broadcast. It's a reminder that even in an age of streaming services and internet access, traditional networks still have the power to decide what millions of people see and don't see. And sometimes, they decide that certain conversations are just too risky to have, even on a show that's built its entire reputation on taking risks. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Stewie's impossible age and the floating timeline paradox. If you watch Family Guy and pay attention to the details, you might notice something that doesn't make any sense. Stewie Griffin, the baby genius with the football-shaped head and the British accent, should not be a baby anymore. In fact, if we follow the show's own timeline, Stewie should be old enough to have graduated from college by now. But every week, when a new episode airs, there he is, still in diapers, still sleeping in a crib, still being treated like a 1-year-old infant. So what's going on? The answer is something called a floating timeline, and it's one of the strangest things about how Family Guy works. Let's start with the basic facts. In Family Guy's story, Stewie Griffin was born on the 11th of September, 1998. The show has mentioned this date in episodes, and it's considered part of the official character history. The 11th of September, 1998, was a Friday. And on that day, in the world of Family Guy, Peter and Lois Griffin welcomed their third child into the world. They named him Stuart Gilligan Griffin, though everyone calls him Stewie. In the very first episode of Family Guy, which aired in January 1999, Stewie celebrated his first birthday. The episode is called Death Has a Shadow, and it shows the Griffin family throwing a birthday party for Stewie as he turns 1 year old. This makes sense with the timeline. If Stewie was born in September 1998, and the first episode aired in January 1999, then yes, Stewie would be turning 1 year old around that time. Everything adds up perfectly. But here's where things start to get weird. Family Guy has now been on the air for over 25 years. The show started in 1999, got canceled twice, came back in 2005, and has been running continuously ever since. Hundreds of episodes have aired. The show has referenced current events, elections, presidents, technology changes, and all sorts of things that prove time is passing in the real world. And yet, Stewie is still a baby. The show itself has made this even more confusing by setting episodes in specific years. There's an episode called New Kidney in Town, where Barack Obama is president. Obama became president in 2009, which means that episode had to take place in 2009 at the earliest. If Stewie was born in 1998, that would make him at least 11 years old in that episode. But in the episode, he's still a baby. He's still in diapers, still in his crib, still being carried around by his parents. It gets even more ridiculous with later episodes. There's an episode called Trump Guy that features Donald Trump as president. Trump became president in 2017, which means that episode takes place in 2017 or later. If you do the math, Stewie would be at least 19 years old by then. He should be in college, maybe studying physics or engineering given how smart he is. But no, in Trump Guy, Stewie is still portrayed as a 1-year-old baby. He hasn't aged a single day. This isn't just about Stewie being a baby forever. The whole Griffin family has this problem. Meg Griffin started the series as a 15-year-old high school student. In one episode, she turned 16. In another episode from season 5, she turned 17. So Meg has aged a little bit, going from 15 to 17 over the course of the show. But if we're being realistic, Meg should be in her 30s by now. She should have graduated high school, gone to college, maybe gotten married and had kids of her own. Chris Griffin has the same issue. He started out as a 13-year-old, then became 14 in one episode. But he's basically stayed 14 for the past 20 years. In real time, Chris should be in his 30s as well. He should be a full-grown adult with a job and possibly a family. Instead, he's still a teenager, going to high school and living with his parents. Even Peter and Lois have this problem, though it's less obvious because they're already adults. Peter's age has been mentioned differently in various episodes. At one point, the show said he was born in 1956. If that's true, Peter should be nearly 70 years old by now, but he looks and acts exactly the same as he did in 1999. Lois once said she was 2 years younger than Peter, which would make her in her late 60s. But she still looks like she's in her 30s or 40s. This is what television writers call a floating timeline. It's when a show keeps making new episodes year after year, but the characters don't age in real time. Instead, they either don't age at all, or they age very slowly, much slower than they should. The timeline floats forward, staying current with whatever year it actually is in the real world, but the characters stay frozen at whatever age the show needs them to be. The Simpsons is probably the most famous example of a floating timeline. That show has been on the air since 1989, and Bart Simpson has been 10 years old the entire time. Homer and Marge have stayed the same age. Nothing about the family changes, even though the show constantly references current events and technology. The Simpsons even made jokes about this, with episodes showing how Homer and Marge met, and each time they tell the story, it's updated to be more recent so that Homer and Marge are still the right age to have 10-year-old Bart. Family Guy does the same thing, but it's even more confusing because the show actually gave Stewie a specific birth year. Most shows with floating timelines avoid doing that. They don't tell you exactly when characters were born because it makes the timeline problems too obvious. But Family Guy said Stewie was born the 11th of September 1998, and now they're stuck with that information. even though it makes no sense anymore. The show has occasionally acknowledged how weird this is. There are moments where characters seem to realize that time isn't working normally in their world. In one episode, someone mentions how long something has been going on, and another character looks confused because the time frame doesn't make sense. But mostly, the show just ignores it and hopes viewers will ignore it too. Why do shows do this? Why not just let the characters age normally? The answer is simple. The show works better when the characters stay the same age. Family Guy is a show about a family. Peter is the immature dad. Lois is the patient mom. Meg is the unpopular teenage daughter. Chris is the dumb teenage son. Stewie is the evil baby genius. Brian is the talking dog. These are the roles that make the show work. If Stewie grew up and became an adult, he wouldn't be the evil baby genius anymore. He'd just be an evil genius, which is way less funny. The same goes for the other kids. Meg, being an unpopular teenager, is a huge part of her character. If she aged in real time and became an adult, she'd have to leave the family and get her own life. The show would have to completely change what her character is about. Chris being a dumb teenage boy leads to all kinds of jokes. If he became an adult, those jokes wouldn't work the same way. For the show's writers, a floating timeline is just easier. They can write the same types of stories over and over again. Peter can keep being irresponsible. Meg can keep being ignored. Chris can keep being stupid. Stewie can keep building crazy inventions and plotting to take over the world. The formula stays the same, and the writers never have to deal with the complications that come from characters growing up and changing. But this creates some really strange situations when you think about it too much. Stewie has been a 1-year-old baby for more than 25 years. Think about everything that's happened in the real world since 1998. We've had multiple presidents. The internet completely changed. Smartphones were invented. Social media took over the world. Wars started and ended. The entire way people live their lives is different now than it was in 1998. And in all that time, Stewie hasn't grown a single inch. He hasn't learned to walk better. He hasn't started talking in a normal baby voice instead of his sophisticated British accent. He's exactly the same as he was on his first birthday in 1999. He's been 1 year old for a quarter of a century. This leads to some really funny contradictions in the show itself. Stewie can build a time machine, create mind control devices, construct advanced weapons, and understand complex physics. He's clearly incredibly intelligent, far smarter than any real 1-year-old could possibly be. But at the same time, he's physically a baby. He wears diapers. He sleeps in a crib. He gets put in a high chair for meals. His body is that of an infant, even though his mind is that of a genius adult. The show has played with this contradiction many times. There are episodes where Stewie does things that babies physically cannot do, like driving a car or operating heavy machinery. The show just accepts that Stewie can do these things, even though it makes no sense for a 1-year-old to have the physical coordination or strength to do them. It's all part of the cartoon logic that makes Family Guy work. In one episode called Chitty Chitty Death Bang, which is actually the 3rd episode ever made, Stewie turns 1 year old. This happened in 1999, during the show's first season. So, according to that episode, Stewie became 1 year old in 1999. But wait, if he was born in September 1998, he would have already turned 1 before that episode aired. The timeline was already confusing even in the first season. Then, much later, in season 20, there's an episode called Life of Brian 2, Revival Reversal, where Stewie celebrates his 2nd birthday. This aired in 2022, more than 20 years after Stewie turned 1. So, technically, Stewie did age from 1 to 2, but it took him over 2 decades of real time to do it. At that rate, Stewie will be 3 years old sometime around the year 2045. The floating timeline also affects how the show handles historical events. In early episodes, Peter and Lois talk about being teenagers in the 1,970 seconds and 1,980 seconds. That made sense when the show started in 1999 because someone who was a teenager in the 1,980 seconds would be in their 30s in 1999, which is how old Peter and Lois are supposed to be. But if the show is now set in 2024 or 2025, and Peter and Lois are still in their 30s or 40s, then they couldn't have been teenagers in the 1,980 seconds. They would have been born in the 1,980 seconds. But the show doesn't care about this contradiction. They'll still make jokes about Peter and Lois being teenagers in the 1,980 seconds, even though the math doesn't work anymore. They'll show flashbacks to Peter in high school listening to 1,980 seconds music and wearing 1,980 seconds clothes. The timeline keeps shifting to make whatever joke the writers want to make work in that moment. This is different from how some other long-running shows handle aging. Some shows actually let their characters grow up. Boy Meets World, for example, started with the main character in middle school and ended with him in college. We watched him grow up over 7 seasons. South Park has had the kids age from 3rd grade to 4th grade over the course of the show, though that took about 20 years to happen. But Family Guy has decided that its characters will stay basically the same forever. Stewie will always be a baby, or at most a toddler. Meg and Chris will always be teenagers. Peter and Lois will always be middle-aged parents. The show will keep making references to current events and modern technology, but the Griffin family themselves will never change. For viewers, this requires something called suspension of disbelief. That's a fancy way of saying you have to just accept things that don't make sense and not think about them too hard. When you watch Family Guy, you can't worry about the fact that Stewie should be an adult by now. You can't question why Peter looks the same in 2024 as he did in 1999. You just have to accept that this is a cartoon world where normal rules don't apply. Some fans find this frustrating. They notice the timeline problems, and it bothers them. They make jokes about it online, pointing out all the ways the show contradicts itself. There are entire websites and forum discussions dedicated to trying to figure out the Family Guy timeline and make sense of all the contradictions. But ultimately, there's no way to make it all work logically. The show simply doesn't follow a consistent timeline. Other fans don't care at all. They watch Family Guy for the jokes, not for a coherent story that makes sense across hundreds of episodes. They don't need Stewie's age to be logical. They just want to laugh at the funny things he says and does. For these viewers, the floating timeline isn't a problem. It's just part of how the show works. The floating timeline does allow the show to stay fresh in some ways. Because the characters don't age, the writers can keep putting them in the same situations over and over again. Peter can keep getting weird jobs and losing them. Stewie can keep having adventures with Brian. Meg can keep being unpopular at school. These are familiar patterns that viewers enjoy, and they wouldn't be possible if the characters aged normally. It also means the show can reference current events without worrying about continuity. If there's a new president, Family Guy can make jokes about that president, even though logically the timeline would make no sense. If there's a new technology or a new trend, the show can incorporate it immediately. The floating timeline gives the writers complete freedom to be current and topical. In the end, Stewie Griffin is one of the oldest babies in television history. He's been 1 year old since 1999, and he'll probably still be 1 year old in 2049 if the show is still running. He should be applying for retirement by now based on his actual birth year, but instead he's still wearing diapers and sleeping in a crib. It's absurd, it's illogical, and it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's also just how Family Guy works, and after 25 years, fans have learned to accept it. Stewie will be a baby forever, Peter will never grow old, and the timeline will keep floating along, making less and less sense with each passing year. And somehow, the show keeps going, proving that sometimes in television, logic matters a lot less than laughs. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the Giant Chicken's 25-year feud over an expired coupon, now dead. Sometimes the smallest things can start the biggest fights. A rude comment, a bad look, or, in the case of Family Guy, an expired coupon. For over 23 years, one of the longest-running jokes on Family Guy was the violent, destructive, absurdly over-the-top fight scenes between Peter Griffin and a giant chicken named Ernie. These fights would appear randomly in episodes, interrupt whatever story was happening, and show Peter and the chicken beating each other senseless for several minutes at a time. The fights destroyed buildings, hurt innocent bystanders, and became one of the most recognizable running gags in the entire show. And it all started because of a coupon that didn't work. The feud began in an episode called Da Boom, which was the 3rd episode of Family Guy's 2nd season. This episode aired on the 26th of December 1999, right after Christmas. The main story was about the Y2K problem, which was something people worried about as the year 2000 approached. Many feared that computers would malfunction when the year changed from 1999 to 2000, causing planes to fall out of the sky and missiles to launch accidentally. In the episode, this fear comes true, and the world basically ends. But before all that happens, there's a scene at the beginning where Peter is at a store, and a man in a chicken suit approaches him. The man asks Peter if he wants a coupon. Peter thinks about it for a moment, and then he remembers something. The episode shows a flashback to an earlier time when Peter encountered Ernie the giant chicken. Ernie gave Peter a coupon for something, probably food or a product at a store. Peter was excited about the coupon and went to use it. But when he tried to pay with the coupon, he discovered it was expired. The coupon was no good. The store wouldn't accept it. This made Peter angry. He felt like Ernie had given him a worthless piece of paper on purpose, like it was some kind of trick or insult. So Peter went to confront Ernie about the expired coupon. What started as a complaint quickly turned into a physical fight, and not just a regular fight with some pushing and punching. This was an epic, destructive battle that tore through the entire town. The first fight between Peter and Ernie set the pattern for all the fights that would follow over the next 2 decades. They would start fighting in one location, then crash through walls into other buildings. They would use whatever objects were nearby as weapons, hitting each other with chairs, poles, vehicles, anything they could grab. Innocent people would get hurt as Peter and Ernie smashed through restaurants, stores, and houses. The fights would go on for minutes, which in television time is actually quite long. What made these fights funny, or at least what the creators thought made them funny, was how ridiculously excessive they were. The whole feud started over an expired coupon, something that might normally deserve a quick complaint or maybe asking for a different coupon. Instead, it became this never-ending war between Peter and a giant chicken. Every time Ernie appeared on screen, no matter what else was happening in the episode, Peter would stop everything, and they would fight. The fights became more and more elaborate as the show went on. In one fight, they would crash through the ceiling of a building and land in a completely different location. In another, they might end up on an airplane or a boat. The animation team clearly put a lot of effort into making these scenes, choreographing complex action sequences that would look impressive and keep viewers entertained. Or, at least that was the goal. What's interesting is that, at the end of most fights, it would look like Ernie was dead. Peter would walk away from a scene where Ernie had been crushed by something heavy, or fallen from a great height, or suffered some other injury that should definitely kill someone. Peter would return to whatever he was doing before the fight started, acting like everything was normal. But then, the camera would show Ernie again, and he would suddenly wake up, or stand up, or somehow be alive despite what just happened. This told viewers that Ernie would be back, and the feud wasn't over. The show gave Ernie a name in season 9, in an episode called No Chris Left Behind. Before that, he was just called the Giant Chicken, or the Chicken. But eventually, the show confirmed his name was Ernie. He had a wife named Nicole and children. The show revealed that Ernie had a whole life outside of fighting Peter. He was a regular guy, or rather a regular giant chicken, who just happened to have this ongoing violent feud with Peter Griffin. In some episodes, the show tried to add depth to Ernie's character. There were moments where it seemed like Peter and Ernie might make peace, or at least understand each other better. One episode even showed that Peter and Ernie needed each other in a strange way. The constant fighting gave both of their lives meaning. Without the feud, they felt empty and purposeless. This was the show's way of acknowledging that the chicken fights had become an essential part of Family Guy's identity. The fights appeared in episode after episode, season after season. Sometimes, they would go several episodes without a chicken fight, and then suddenly, Ernie would appear, and it would start all over again. The locations changed, the specific moves and hits changed, but the basic idea stayed the same. Peter sees Ernie, they fight for several minutes, causing massive destruction. Peter wins and walks away. Ernie survives to fight another day. Not everyone loved these fights. Some viewers thought they were hilarious, an example of Family Guy's willingness to commit to a ridiculous joke and take it as far as possible. These fans looked forward to the chicken fights, wondering when the next one would happen and what crazy things would occur during it. But other viewers found the fights boring and annoying. They felt like the fights interrupted the actual story of the episode. They were too long, too repetitive, and not funny enough to justify the amount of time they took up. Critics of the show often pointed to the chicken fights as an example of lazy writing. Instead of writing more jokes or developing the story, the writers would just throw in a chicken fight to fill time. The fights could last 3, 4, even 5 minutes in some episodes. That's a significant chunk of a 22-minute episode. Some people suspected the fights were used when an episode was running short and the writers needed to add more content quickly. Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, defended the chicken fights in interviews. He talked about how the show liked to take jokes and run them longer than they should go. The idea was that something starts out funny, then stops being funny because it goes on too long, then becomes annoying, but if you keep going even longer, it somehow becomes funny again. The chicken fights followed this pattern. The first 30 seconds are exciting, the next minute gets old, but then it keeps going, and the sheer absurdity of how long it lasts becomes the joke. For 23 seasons, the chicken fights continued. Ernie became one of the most recurring characters on the show, even though he barely ever spoke and existed mainly to fight Peter. Fans who had been watching since 1999 grew up with these fights. Kids who watched the show as teenagers were now adults with their own kids, and the chicken fights were still happening. But in 2025, something changed. Season 23 of Family Guy brought an episode called The Chicken or the Meg, which aired on the 16th of March 2025. This episode took a completely different approach to the Ernie storyline. Instead of having Peter fight the chicken, the episode focused on Meg, Peter's daughter, who is usually ignored and mistreated by everyone in her family. The episode starts with Meg going on a reality dating show called Sex Farm. She's looking for love, hoping to find someone who will actually care about her, which is something she rarely gets from her own family. On the show, Meg meets a guy in a chicken suit. At first, it seems like he's just a person dressed as a chicken, but then it's revealed that he actually is a chicken, a teenage chicken to be specific. His name is Nugget, and he's Ernie's son. Despite the weirdness of dating a giant chicken, Meg and Nugget actually connect. They get along well and seem to genuinely like each other. They both feel like outsiders, both have difficult family situations, and both are looking for someone who understands them. Meg and Nugget start dating seriously, which creates an obvious problem. Meg's father has been violently fighting Nugget's father for over 20 years. Peter is furious when he finds out Meg is dating Ernie's son. He can't accept it. The idea of his daughter being with anyone related to the giant chicken is too much for him. Peter tries to stop the relationship, but Meg refuses to break up with Nugget. She's finally found someone who treats her well, and she's not going to let her father ruin it, even if her father is her father's worst enemy. Things escalate when Meg decides to move out of the Griffin house and go live with Nugget and his family. She chooses her boyfriend's family over her own. Peter initially acts like he doesn't care, making jokes and pretending he's happy to have Meg out of the house. But as time goes on, Peter realizes he actually misses his daughter. Despite all the years of ignoring her, insulting her, and treating her terribly, Peter discovers that he does love Meg and wants her to come home. Meanwhile, Meg is living with Ernie and his family. At first, everything seems fine. Ernie and his wife Nicole are welcoming. They don't seem to have the same hatred for the Griffins that Peter has for them. Ernie is surprisingly okay with Meg dating his son, but then Ernie and Peter have a chance encounter. Maybe they run into each other at a store or on the street, and the old feelings come back. Ernie gives Meg an ultimatum, which means he forces her to make a choice. He tells Meg she has to pick between staying with Nugget or keeping her relationship with her father. She can't have both. Either she cuts ties with Peter Griffin completely, or she has to break up with Nugget and move back home. Ernie makes it clear that he will not accept Meg being part of his family if she's still connected to Peter in any way. This is when Meg realizes something important. Ernie is just as bad as Peter, maybe worse. He's asking her to give up her family, to completely abandon her father, just because of this stupid feud over an expired coupon. Meg sees that Ernie is being unreasonable, petty, and cruel. He's willing to hurt his own son's happiness just to continue this meaningless fight with Peter. Meg gets angry, really angry. She's tired of men in her life treating her badly. She's tired of being caught in the middle of other people's problems. And she's especially tired of this ridiculous chicken feud that has been going on since before she was born. So Meg confronts Ernie. They stand facing each other, and it looks like they're going to fight. just like Peter and Ernie have fought so many times before. But then something different happens. Ernie realizes he's about to fight a girl, and Ernie, for all his violence and anger, has a rule. He won't hit a girl. He tells Meg this, expecting it to end the confrontation. He thinks Meg will back down now that she knows he won't fight her. But Meg doesn't back down. She doesn't need Ernie to fight back. She's going to handle this herself. In one quick, brutal move, Meg grabs Ernie and tears his head completely off his body. She decapitates him, which means she removes his head from his neck. It's a shocking, violent moment. Ernie's headless body stands there for a few seconds, then starts running around in circles the way chickens sometimes do when their heads are cut off. Finally, the body falls to the ground and stops moving. Ernie, the giant chicken, is dead. What makes this different from all the other times Ernie appeared to die is what happens next. Usually, the camera would show Ernie waking up at the end, proving he survived. But this time, there's no such scene. The episode ends without showing Ernie coming back to life. His death seems real and permanent. Fans who watched the episode weren't sure what to think. Was Ernie really dead? Or would he come back in a later episode like he always did? For several months, nobody knew for sure. The show didn't address it in the next few episodes. Ernie simply didn't appear, which could mean he was dead, or could just mean the show wasn't doing chicken fights for a while. Fans debated online, arguing about whether Ernie was truly gone, or if this was just another fake out. Then, in October 2025, the truth was revealed. TV Line, an entertainment news website, interviewed two of Family Guy's executive producers, Alex Sulkin and Richard Apple. The interview was specifically about Ernie's fate, and the producers finally confirmed what fans had suspected. Ernie the giant chicken was dead for real, and he wasn't coming back. Alex Sulkin's exact words were, "I think that the chicken has gone the way of all flesh." This is a phrase that means someone has died and will not return. It's a poetic way of saying Ernie is gone forever. Sulkin explained that the show had gotten so many great fight scenes out of the giant chicken over the years, but those scenes had become hard to top. Each fight needed to be bigger and more elaborate than the last one, and eventually, there was nowhere left to go with the idea. Sulkin also pointed out that creating these fight scenes was a lot of work for the animation team. The fights were complex, with detailed choreography and lots of destruction to animate. It required a huge effort from the production crew, and after 23 years of making these scenes, maybe it was time to move on to other ideas. Richard Appel added another reason why the chicken fights had to end. He pointed to the 2014 crossover episode between Family Guy and The Simpsons, where Peter and Homer Simpson had an epic fight that was clearly modeled after the chicken fights. That fight involved characters from both shows, tons of destruction, and went on for several minutes. Appel said that after watching that fight, it was hard to know where they could take the chicken fights that would top what had already been done. So the decision was made. Ernie the giant chicken, who had been fighting Peter Griffin since 1999, was officially dead. He had survived being crushed, burned, shot, stabbed, thrown from buildings, and every other form of violence imaginable. But he couldn't survive Meg Griffin ripping his head off. And this time, there would be no coming back. The death of Ernie marks the end of one of the longest-running gags in Family Guy history. For over 2 decades, viewers knew that at any moment, a giant chicken might appear and start an epic fight with Peter. It was unpredictable and became part of what made the show unique. Now that's over. Future episodes of Family Guy will not have chicken fights, at least not with Ernie. Some fans were sad to see Ernie go. They enjoyed the fights and thought they were an important part of the show's identity. These fans felt like Family Guy was losing something essential by killing off Ernie permanently. Other fans were relieved. They had grown tired of the fights years ago and were happy the show was finally moving on. And some fans were simply shocked that the show actually committed to killing a character and keeping them dead, which is rare for Family Guy. It's fitting, in a way, that Meg was the one who ended the feud. Meg is the most ignored and mistreated character in the Griffin family. She's constantly put down, forgotten, and used as the butt of jokes. Having her be the one to finally kill Ernie gives Meg a moment of power and importance that she rarely gets. She succeeded where Peter never truly could. Peter fought Ernie dozens of times over 23 years and never permanently won. Meg fought him once and ended it forever. The feud between Peter Griffin and Ernie the Giant Chicken started over something completely stupid. an expired coupon that probably wasn't worth more than $1 or $2. That tiny incident became a 23-year war that destroyed countless buildings, hurt hundreds of innocent people, and became one of the most famous running gags in animated television. And now it's over. Ernie is dead. The fights are done. The chicken has, as the producers said, gone the way of all flesh. What started with a coupon ended with a decapitation, and one of Family Guy's longest-running jokes has finally come to an end. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to The Simpsons crossover, when Homer threw Emmys at Peter. For years, fans of animated comedies had dreamed about it. What would happen if the two biggest cartoon families on Fox actually met? The Simpsons had been on the air since 1989, becoming the longest-running animated series in television history. Family Guy started in 1999 and became one of the most popular adult cartoons of the 2000s. Both shows aired on Fox. Both featured dysfunctional families. Both pushed the boundaries of what you could say and do on network television. It seemed inevitable that someday, somehow, these two shows would cross over. And on the 28th of September 2014, it finally happened. The episode was called The Simpsons Guy, and it was special in multiple ways. First, it was longer than a normal episode. Most Family Guy episodes run about 22 minutes. This one was 44 minutes long, basically the length of 2 regular episodes put together. It was also the season premiere for Family Guy's 13th season, which meant Fox was using it to kick off the new season with something big and attention-grabbing. The story begins in Quohog, Rhode Island, where the Griffin family lives. Peter Griffin decides to create a comic strip for the local newspaper. He thinks he's being funny and clever, but his comic strip turns out to be extremely offensive to women. It contains misogynistic humor, which means jokes that put down and insult women. The women of Quohog are not happy about this. They get angry at Peter and start protesting. Peter, being Peter, doesn't understand why people are upset. He thinks everyone is overreacting. Lois, his wife, tries to get him to apologize and make things right. She sets up an appearance for Peter on a local talk show hosted by a character named Joyce Kinney, thinking Peter can explain himself and calm everyone down. But Peter makes things worse. On the talk show, he says more offensive things, and now the entire town is furious with him. The internet picks up the story, and suddenly, Peter Griffin is hated not just in Quohog, but everywhere. The Griffin family decides they need to leave town until things cool down. They pack up their car and start driving, not really sure where they're going. After driving all night, they stop at a gas station to rest and get supplies. But while the family is inside the gas station, someone steals their car. Everything they packed is gone, and they're stranded in the middle of nowhere with no way to get home. Peter asks someone where they are, and he finds out they're outside a town called Springfield. If you know The Simpsons, you know that Springfield is where the Simpson family lives. Peter and his family walk into Springfield looking for help, and they end up at a convenience store called the Quick E-Mart. This is the store run by Apu in The Simpsons, a place that appears in countless episodes of that show. At the Quick E-Mart, Peter meets Homer Simpson. Homer is buying donuts, because of course he is. Homer loves donuts more than almost anything. When he sees that the Griffin family is in trouble, Homer does what Homer does. He's friendly and helpful in his own clumsy way. He offers to buy them donuts and suggests they come stay with his family until they can figure out what to do about their stolen car. The Griffin family goes home with Homer to meet the rest of the Simpsons. There's Marge, Homer's wife, who is patient and kind. There's Bart, the troublemaking son. There's Lisa, the intelligent daughter. And there's Maggie, the baby who never talks. The two families start spending time together, and this is where the episode really begins to have fun with the crossover concept. Stewie Griffin, the baby genius from Family Guy, meets Bart Simpson. Stewie is impressed by Bart's pranks and rebellious attitude. Bart shows Stewie his slingshot and teaches him about the kind of mischief he gets into around Springfield. But Stewie takes things way too far. He's used to doing extreme things on Family Guy, like building weapons and plotting world domination. When Stewie tries to help Bart prank his enemies, Stewie's idea of pranking involves kidnapping people and doing actually dangerous things. Bart is shocked and horrified by how far Stewie is willing to go. Meanwhile, Meg Griffin meets Lisa Simpson. Lisa is talented at playing the saxophone, and she discovers that Meg also has musical ability. Lisa starts teaching Meg how to play, and Meg turns out to be really good at it. In fact, Meg is so good that she's better than Lisa. This makes Lisa jealous, which is something Lisa struggles with sometimes on The Simpsons. She's used to being the smart, talented one, and having Meg surpass her at something is hard for Lisa to accept. Peter and Homer become friends quickly. They both love beer, they both act like immature children, and they both cause problems for their families. They go off together to find Peter's stolen car, and they have various adventures around Springfield. The episode shows them bonding and having a good time together, at least at first. But then something happens that starts a conflict between the two families. Homer and Peter are at a bar called Moe's Tavern, which is Homer's favorite place to drink in Springfield. Peter has brought a beer from Quohog called Pawtucket Patriot Ale. He's very proud of this beer and wants Homer to try it. Homer takes a drink and immediately notices something. He tells Peter that this beer tastes exactly like Duff beer, the beer that Homer always drinks in Springfield. Peter insists that Pawtucket Patriot is its own beer, completely different from Duff. But Moe, the bartender, takes the bottle from them and peels off the Pawtucket Patriot label. Underneath, there's a Duff beer label. This means that Pawtucket Patriot Ale is actually just Duff beer with a different label slapped on top. It's a complete ripoff, a cheap copy, pretending to be something original. A lawyer appears, because this is a serious legal issue. The lawyer announces that he's going to sue the Pawtucket Patriot Brewery for copying Duff beer. This becomes a huge problem because Peter works at the Pawtucket Patriot Brewery. If the company gets in trouble, Peter could lose his job. The whole town of Quohog could be affected because the brewery is a major employer. This lawsuit creates tension between Springfield and Quohog. It becomes a battle between the two towns, with each side defending their beer and their way of life. More importantly for the episode, it creates a conflict between Homer and Peter. What started as a friendship turns into a rivalry. The episode uses this conflict to make a bigger point, one that's really directed at the audience and television critics. For years, people had accused Family Guy of being a ripoff of The Simpsons. The criticism was that Family Guy just copied The Simpsons' formula of an animated family sitcom and made it cruder and more offensive. The beer lawsuit in the episode is clearly a metaphor for this accusation. Family Guy is represented by Pawtucket Patriot, and The Simpsons is represented by Duff. The episode is directly addressing the idea that Family Guy is just a copy of The Simpsons. This leads to the centerpiece of the entire episode, an epic fight between Peter Griffin and Homer Simpson. The fight is modeled after Peter's famous fights with Ernie the Giant Chicken from Family Guy. It goes on for about 8 minutes, which is an incredibly long time for an animated fight scene. The fight was directed by Peter Shin, which is significant because Peter Shin used to work on The Simpsons as a layout artist before he moved to Family Guy. So, a former Simpsons employee directed a fight between characters from both shows. The fight takes Peter and Homer all over Springfield, destroying parts of the town and causing chaos everywhere they go. They crash through buildings, use various objects as weapons, and hurt each other in increasingly ridiculous ways. At one point, they fall into the Springfield Gorge, which is a famous location from The Simpsons where Homer once fell and hurt himself badly. The fight includes references and callbacks to moments from both shows, rewarding fans who had been watching both series for years. The most memorable part of the fight happens when Homer starts throwing Emmy Awards at Peter. The Simpsons has won 31 Emmy Awards over the years, and Homer literally weaponizes them, using the heavy statues as projectiles to throw at Peter. Peter can't throw anything back because Family Guy has never won an Emmy Award. The show has been nominated many times, and individual crew members have won Emmys for their work, but the show itself has never won. This is played for laughs, but it's also a pointed joke about how The Simpsons is more critically acclaimed than Family Guy. During the fight, Roger from American Dad makes a brief appearance. American Dad is another show created by Seth MacFarlane, and at the time of this crossover, it had just finished its run on Fox and was moving to a different network. Roger shows up on an alien spaceship during the fight, says, "Thanks for having me," and then gets sucked out into space. It's a quick cameo that acknowledges American Dad's departure from Fox. The fight eventually ends with Homer and Peter both exhausted and beaten up. They realize that fighting isn't solving anything. They apologize to each other and admit that they actually respect each other despite their differences. Homer suggests they keep their shows a half hour apart from each other, with a pile of garbage between them. This is another meta joke about how the shows are different and should stay separate, but they can coexist. The Griffin family gets their car back, the lawsuit gets resolved, and everyone returns to normal. The Griffins go back to Quohog, and the Simpsons stay in Springfield. Stewie has a moment at the end where he's writing on a chalkboard, copying the famous opening of The Simpsons where Bart writes lines on a chalkboard as punishment. Stewie writes that he promises not to think about Bart anymore, but he's crying while he writes it, showing that he's going to miss his new friend. One interesting fact about the production is that Harry Shearer, one of the main voice actors on The Simpsons, did not participate in the crossover. Shearer voices many important characters on The Simpsons, including Mr. Burns, Ned Flanders, Principal Skinner, and others. According to reports, Shearer was unavailable for the recording of this episode. His characters either don't appear or appear without speaking. The one exception is Lenny, one of Homer's friends, who has a couple of lines that were voiced by Dan Castellaneta doing an impression of Shearer's voice. The crossover received mixed reviews from critics and fans. Some people loved it, thinking it was a fun celebration of both shows that delivered on the promise of seeing these characters interact. These viewers enjoyed seeing Bart and Stewie together, appreciated the Homer and Peter fight, and liked all the references to both shows packed into the episode. Other people hated it. Some Simpsons fans felt like the episode was too much like Family Guy, with crude humor and shock value jokes that didn't fit The Simpsons style. They felt like The Simpsons, a show known for its heart and clever satire, got infected with Family Guy's mean-spirited and offensive comedy. Family Guy fans, on the other hand, sometimes felt like the episode was restrained, like the show was holding back its usual style to accommodate The Simpsons. Critics pointed out specific problems with the episode. The car wash scene, where Peter and Homer wash a car together while water sprays everywhere, and they're wearing revealing clothing, was criticized as uncomfortable and unnecessary. Some of the jokes about rape and violence were called out as offensive, even by Family Guy standards. The fact that the episode was so long meant there was more time for jokes to fall flat or scenes to drag on. Ellen E. Jones of The Independent, a British newspaper, wrote a review after the episode aired in the UK in July 2015. She criticized the rape jokes and violence, and suggested that people were getting tired of Seth MacFarlane's style of humor. She connected this to the poor box office performance of MacFarlane's movie, Ted 2, which had come out around the same time. But Ed Power of the Daily Telegraph had a different take. He felt like Family Guy's usual offensive content was actually restrained in this episode, as if the show had been influenced by the more gentle style of recent Simpsons episodes. He thought Family Guy tried to tone things down for the crossover, which made it less like Family Guy and more like a watered-down version of both shows. The AV Club, an entertainment website, named the episode one of the worst things on TV in 2014. They specifically called it the worst crossover of the year. They complained about scenes like the car wash and the overly long fight, saying these moments existed for no real reason other than to fill time. Despite the mixed reviews, The Simpsons Guy was a significant moment in television history. It was the first time The Simpsons had done a full crossover with another show since the characters left the Tracy Ullman Show back in the 1980 seconds. The Simpsons had appeared in brief cameos on other shows, and other shows had referenced The Simpsons, but this was different. This was a complete, extended crossover where the two families shared the screen and interacted throughout an entire episode. The crossover also represented something symbolic about Fox's animation dominance. For decades, Fox had been the home of animated comedies for adults. The Simpsons started it all, proving that cartoons could be smart, satirical, and successful in prime time. Family Guy followed, showing that there was room for more adult animation on the network. At the time of the crossover, Fox also had Bob's Burgers and American Dad, creating a whole lineup of animated shows. Having The Simpsons and Family Guy cross over was Fox celebrating its own success in animation. In the years since the crossover aired, there haven't been any plans for a sequel. Richard Appel, one of the executive producers, said in interviews that, while they were open to the possibility, there were no current plans to do another crossover. He joked that maybe by season 43 of The Simpsons and season 27 of Family Guy, someone might look at a blank board and suggest bringing the Griffins to Springfield again. But for now, The Simpsons Guy stands alone as the one time these two famous families met. The episode lives on as a curiosity in the history of both shows. It's the episode where Homer Simpson weaponized Emmy Awards against Peter Griffin. It's the episode where Bart Simpson was horrified by Stewie Griffin's extreme ideas. It's the episode where Lisa Simpson got jealous of Meg Griffin's musical talent. And it's the episode where two of television's most famous animated dads beat each other up for 8 minutes straight, destroying half of Springfield in the process. Whether you loved it or hated it, The Simpsons guy proved that when two animated powerhouses collide, the results are going to be big, loud, and impossible to ignore. It brought together fans of both shows, even if those fans couldn't agree on whether the crossover was good or terrible. And it gave us the image of Homer Simpson throwing Emmy Awards at Peter Griffin, a perfect visual representation of the rivalry between America's two most famous dysfunctional cartoon families. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the Boston Marathon cutaway that got an episode banned. Sometimes, a joke that seems harmless when you write it can become horrible because of things that happen later. Television shows are usually made weeks or months before they actually air, so the writers have no way of knowing what will happen in the real world between the time they create an episode and the time people watch it. But sometimes, tragically, reality catches up with fiction in the worst possible way. That's exactly what happened with a Family Guy episode that aired in March 2013, and the consequences were so severe that the episode was banned from television for nearly a decade. The episode was called Turban Cowboy, and it aired on Fox on the 17th of March 2013. The title was a play on words based on an old movie called Urban Cowboy from 1980. The episode had a typical Family Guy plot, with Peter Griffin getting into various misadventures. The main story involved Peter becoming friends with a Muslim man and getting involved with a Muslim community, which led to various jokes and situations. But the episode also contained something that would become notorious, a cutaway gag about the Boston Marathon. Family Guy is famous for its cutaway gags, those brief scenes that interrupt the main story to show a quick joke about something random. These cutaways usually have nothing to do with the actual plot of the episode. They're just standalone jokes that appear for a few seconds, and then the episode returns to the regular story. In this particular cutaway, the show depicted Peter Griffin at the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon is one of the oldest and most famous marathon races in the world. It happens every year in Boston, Massachusetts, usually in April. Thousands of runners participate, and thousands more come to watch and cheer them on. It's a beloved tradition in Boston and a major sporting event that people from all over the world know about. In the Family Guy cutaway, Peter is shown driving his car directly through the crowd of marathon runners. He's running people over, hitting them with his car, causing chaos and destruction. People are shown being struck by the vehicle and thrown into the air. It's meant to be a dark, shocking joke, the kind of over-the-top violence that Family Guy often uses for humor. The scene lasts only a few seconds, just like most cutaway gags, and then the episode moves on to other things. When the episode aired on the 17th of March 2013, this cutaway was just another controversial Family Guy joke. Some viewers probably found it funny in a dark way. Others probably found it offensive and in poor taste. But it was just one moment in one episode of a show that regularly made jokes about violence, death, and terrible things happening to people. The episode aired, people watched it, and then everyone moved on to the next week's episode. But then, less than a month later, something unthinkable happened. On the 15th of April 2013, the Boston Marathon was taking place just like it does every year. Thousands of runners were racing through the streets of Boston. Families were watching and cheering. It was a beautiful spring day, and everything seemed normal and happy. Then, at 2:49 inches the afternoon, 2 bombs exploded near the finish line of the marathon. The explosions were about 12 seconds apart, and roughly 200 yards away from each other. 3 people were killed instantly, including an 8-year-old boy. More than 260 people were injured, some of them very seriously. 17 people lost legs or feet because of the explosions. It was a terrorist attack, a deliberate act of violence meant to hurt innocent people. The entire nation was shocked and horrified. Boston went into lockdown as police searched for the people responsible. News coverage focused on the bombing for days. People were grieving, scared, and angry. The Boston Marathon, which had been a celebration of athletics and community, was now the site of a tragedy. It was one of the worst terrorist attacks on American soil since the 11th of September 2001. And suddenly, that Family Guy cutaway from a month earlier became a huge problem. The episode had shown Peter Griffin causing harm to marathon runners in Boston. Now, a real attack had happened at the real Boston Marathon, and people had actually been hurt and killed. The joke that had aired in March now looked absolutely terrible in light of the April bombing. Fox acted quickly. Within hours of the bombing, the network pulled the episode Turban Cowboy from all of their platforms. It was removed from Fox.com, where people could watch episodes online. It was pulled from Hulu, the streaming service where Family Guy episodes were available. The network announced that they had no immediate plans to ever broadcast the episode again. For all practical purposes, the episode was banned. The decision to pull the episode wasn't just about the marathon cutaway. The episode also had other content that became problematic after the bombing. The main plot involved Peter befriending a Muslim character, and there were jokes about terrorism throughout the episode. When it turned out that the Boston Marathon bombers were Muslim extremists, these jokes became even more uncomfortable and inappropriate. The whole episode felt wrong in the context of what had just happened. Social media erupted with reactions. Some people were angry at Family Guy for making the joke in the first place, even though the episode had aired before the bombing. These people felt like the show had gone too far with its dark humor, and that this proved Family Guy was offensive and should be taken off the air completely. They didn't seem to understand or care that the episode was created before the real bombing happened. Other people defended the show, pointing out that there was no way the writers could have known what was going to happen a month later. They argued it was just an unfortunate coincidence, a terrible piece of bad timing. The episode wasn't making fun of the real bombing because the real bombing hadn't happened yet when the episode was made. It was just a dark joke that became horrifically relevant because of tragic events. Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, responded to the controversy. While he didn't issue a lengthy apology, he did express regret about the timing of the episode. He seemed to understand why people were upset and why Fox had to pull the episode. MacFarlane has always defended Family Guy's right to make offensive jokes, but even he seemed to recognize that this particular situation was different. When a joke accidentally mirrors a real tragedy, it doesn't matter what the intent was. The result is still painful for people who are grieving. The episode stayed banned for years. Even though other controversial Family Guy episodes eventually returned to streaming services or aired on Adult Swim late at night, Turban Cowboy remained unavailable. It became one of the most infamous banned episodes in television history, not because it was intentionally offensive about a real event, but because of the horrible coincidence of timing. In some ways, the banning of this episode was different from other banned Family Guy episodes. Partial Terms of Endearment was banned because Fox didn't want to air an episode about abortion. When You Wish Upon a Weinstein was initially banned because of concerns about anti-Semitic content, but Turban Cowboy was banned because of something nobody could have predicted or prevented. The writers didn't know the Boston Marathon bombing would happen. They couldn't have known that their joke would become real in the most horrible way possible. This raises difficult questions about comedy and tragedy. Should a joke be considered offensive if it was made before the tragic event it seems to reference? Is it fair to ban an episode because of something that happened after it was created? These are questions without easy answers. Fox decided that regardless of the intent, the episode was too painful for people to watch in the aftermath of the bombing. The network chose to respect the feelings of victims, survivors, and the Boston community over the right to air an episode of a cartoon. The bombing itself had a profound impact on Boston and the entire country. The city came together in the aftermath, with the phrase "Boston Strong" becoming a rallying cry for resilience and recovery. The Boston Marathon continued the next year, and every year since, with even more people participating and watching as a way to show that terrorism wouldn't stop this beloved tradition. The bombing was a dark moment in American history, but it also showed how communities can unite in the face of tragedy. For Family Guy, the incident was a reminder that even absurd, over-the-top comedy can accidentally intersect with real-world horror. The show has always prided itself on being willing to joke about anything, no matter how dark or controversial. But this situation showed that sometimes the real world is darker than any joke a comedy writer could imagine. It wasn't until September 2022, more than 9 years after the bombing, that Turban Cowboy finally reappeared on Hulu. The episode was quietly added back to the streaming service without any announcement or fanfare. By that time, nearly a decade had passed since the bombing. The immediate pain and raw emotions had faded, though certainly not the memory of what happened. Enough time had passed that Fox apparently felt comfortable making the episode available again. Even with the episode back on streaming, it remains one of the most controversial moments in Family Guy's history. It's brought up whenever people discuss the show's tendency to make jokes about tragedy and violence. It's used as an example in debates about whether comedy should have boundaries and what happens when jokes age badly or become relevant in ways nobody intended. The turban cowboy situation is unique in the history of television because it shows how unpredictable the world can be. Television shows are made in advance, sometimes months before they air. Writers create jokes based on what they know at the time, trying to be funny or shocking or clever, but they can't see the future. They can't know that a throwaway joke about a car at a marathon will suddenly become a painful reminder of a real terrorist attack. For the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing and their families, that Family Guy cutaway was probably the last thing on their minds as they dealt with injury, loss, and grief. But for some people, seeing that clip after the bombing must have been incredibly upsetting. Even knowing it was made before the real event, the images of violence at the Boston Marathon were too close to what actually happened. The episode serves as a reminder of comedy's limitations. Family Guy has joked about September 11, school shootings, plane crashes, and countless other tragedies. Usually, these jokes are about events that happened in the past, and while they may be offensive to some people, they don't feel like predictions or coincidences. But when a joke seems to predict a tragedy that hasn't happened yet, it feels different. It feels wrong in a way that's hard to explain, but easy to understand. Turban Cowboy will always be known as the episode that got banned because of the Boston Marathon bombing. It's a cautionary tale about dark humor, bad timing, and the unpredictable nature of reality. The episode showed that even a cartoon can accidentally touch on real pain, and when that happens, sometimes the only respectful choice is to pull it from the air and give people time to heal. The fact that it took nearly a decade for the episode to become available again shows just how serious and tragic the Boston Marathon bombing was, and how even an unintentional connection to that tragedy needed to be handled with care and sensitivity. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Chris Griffin's voice being based on Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Chris Griffin's voice is based on Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Voice acting is a special skill that requires creativity, talent, and sometimes a willingness to take big risks. When actors audition for cartoon characters, they usually come prepared with different voice options to show the casting directors. They might try a high voice, a low voice, a funny accent, or some other unique sound that could work for the character. But sometimes, the best voice choices come from the most unexpected places. For Chris Griffin, the dim-witted teenage son on Family Guy, that unexpected place was one of the most terrifying villains in movie history. Chris Griffin is voiced by Seth Green, an actor who was already well known before Family Guy started. Green had appeared in movies and TV shows since he was a child. He was in the Austin Powers movies playing Dr. Evil's son, and he had roles in various other comedies. But Green is probably most famous for his work in animation and voice acting. He created and stars in Robot Chicken, an animated sketch comedy show on Adult Swim, where he voices dozens of different characters. Green has always been good at changing his voice and creating distinct sounds for different characters. When Family Guy was being cast in the late 1990 seconds, the creators needed someone to voice Chris Griffin. Chris is Peter and Lois's teenage son, the middle child of the Griffin family. He's not very smart, he's a bit overweight like his father, and he's generally portrayed as a sweet but dim-witted kid who doesn't understand most of what's happening around him. The character needed a voice that would reflect this personality, something that sounded a bit slow and simple, but also likable and innocent. Seth Green got called in to audition for the role. Like any professional actor, he probably prepared different voice options to present to the casting team. He could have gone with something safe and predictable. According to reports, one option he considered was a stereotypical surfer dude voice, the kind of laid-back, dude and totally way of speaking that was popular for playing not too bright teenage characters, that would have been a reasonable choice that probably would have worked fine for Chris. But Seth Green had another idea, one that was much stranger and riskier. The story goes that shortly before the audition, Green was hanging out with a friend, just goofing around and doing funny voices the way actors sometimes do. During this hangout session, Green did an impression of a character from a famous movie. That character was Buffalo Bill from the 1991 thriller, The Silence of the Lambs. The Silence of the Lambs is a serious, dark movie about an FBI agent hunting a serial killer. Buffalo Bill is the villain of the movie, a deeply disturbed person who commits horrible crimes. The character is remembered for several distinctive traits, including a specific way of speaking. Buffalo Bill has a particular vocal quality that's unsettling and creepy, which is exactly what the filmmakers wanted for a character who was supposed to be frightening. This seems like a very odd choice for voicing a teenage character on an animated comedy. Buffalo Bill is a horror movie villain. Chris Griffin is a kid on a cartoon sitcom. The two couldn't be more different. But when Seth Green did his Buffalo Bill impression for his friend, something about it struck them as funny in a weird way. The voice was so unexpected and unusual that it might actually work for a cartoon character, even though it came from such a dark source. Green's friend apparently thought this was hilarious and dared him to use the Buffalo Bill voice when he auditioned for Chris Griffin. A dare is when someone challenges you to do something, often something bold or risky that you might not normally do. Green's friend was basically saying, "I dare you to go into this professional audition for a major TV show and do your impression of a serial killer from a horror movie." Seth Green accepted the dare. When he went to audition for the role of Chris Griffin, he used his Buffalo Bill impression. He took the vocal qualities of a frightening movie villain and applied them to a teenage cartoon character. It was a bold, weird choice that could have easily backfired. The casting directors could have thought Green was making fun of the audition or that he wasn't taking it seriously. They could have thanked him for coming in and sent him on his way. But instead, they loved it. The voice that Seth Green created, based on his Buffalo Bill impression, was exactly what they wanted for Chris. It was distinctive and unusual. It sounded slightly off in a way that perfectly captured Chris's character. The voice suggested someone who wasn't quite operating on the same level as everyone else, which fit Chris's personality as the not-too-bright son. Green got the job, and he's been voicing Chris Griffin in that same Buffalo Bill-inspired voice for over 25 years. For years, this was just an interesting piece of behind-the-scenes trivia that fans of the show might have heard about in interviews or DVD commentaries. It was a fun story about how Seth Green got the role, but it didn't really affect the show itself. Chris's voice just sounded like Chris's voice. Most viewers had no idea it was based on Buffalo Bill, and it didn't matter for enjoying the show. But then, the writers of Family Guy decided to do something clever and self-referential. They created an episode where this origin story for Chris's voice became part of the actual show. The episode shows Meg Griffin, Chris's older sister, getting revenge on Chris for something he did to her. Meg is constantly mistreated by her family and bullied at school, so when she gets a chance to embarrass someone else for a change, she takes it. Meg's revenge involves showing a video of Chris to everyone at their high school. In the video, Chris is recreating a famous scene from The Silence of the Lambs. It's the scene where Buffalo Bill performs a disturbing dance in his basement. The scene in the movie features a specific song playing in the background, and the character does a strange, unsettling dance. It's one of the most memorable and disturbing moments in the film. In the Family Guy episode, Chris is shown doing his own version of this dance. He's imitating Buffalo Bill's movements, recreating this scene from the horror movie. When Meg shows this video at school, Chris is humiliated. Everyone sees him doing this weird, creepy dance, and he becomes a laughingstock. What makes this moment so clever is that it's a meta joke, which means it's a joke about the show itself. The episode is directly referencing the real-world origin of Chris's voice. Chris is humiliated by being associated with Buffalo Bill, the same character that inspired Seth Green's voice for Chris in the first place. It's the show acknowledging its own history and making a joke about something that happened behind the scenes during the creation of the series. For viewers who knew the story about Seth Green's audition, this scene was probably hilarious. It was Family Guy saying, "Yes, We know Chris's voice is based on Buffalo Bill, and we're going to make a joke about it. For viewers who didn't know that story, the scene was just a funny moment where Meg embarrasses Chris, and it might have encouraged them to look up the connection and learn about how Chris's voice was created. This kind of self-referential humor is something Family Guy does often. The show frequently breaks the fourth wall, which means the characters acknowledge they're on a TV show or make references to the production of the series. They'll make jokes about Fox, the network that airs Family Guy. They'll reference Seth MacFarlane, the creator. They'll talk about ratings, cancellations, and other behind-the-scenes stuff. The Chris and Buffalo Bill joke fits perfectly into this pattern. Seth Green has talked about voicing Chris in various interviews over the years. He's explained how he developed the voice and how it's based on Buffalo Bill. Green has also discussed the challenge of maintaining that voice consistently over hundreds of episodes spanning more than 2 decades. Voice acting requires physical effort, especially when you're doing an unusual voice that's different from your natural speaking voice. Green has to make his vocal cords produce that specific Chris Griffin sound every time he records, and he's been doing it since 1999. The Buffalo Bill connection also shows how creative choices in entertainment can come from the strangest places. You wouldn't normally think to look at a horror movie villain when trying to create a voice for a cartoon teenager. But Seth Green and the Family Guy creators saw potential in that unlikely combination. They took something creepy and frightening and transformed it into something funny and endearing. Chris's voice, despite its dark origins, perfectly captures the character's innocence and simplicity. It's worth noting that Chris's voice doesn't sound exactly like Buffalo Bill. Seth Green adapted the voice, changing it and softening it to fit a teenage character on a comedy show. He kept certain vocal qualities, the specific tone and rhythm of how Buffalo Bill spoke, but he made it his own and made it appropriate for Chris. If you listen to Buffalo Bill in the movie and then listen to Chris in Family Guy, you might notice some similarities, but they're not identical. Green took inspiration from Buffalo Bill, but created something new. The dare from Seth Green's friend turned out to be one of the best decisions in the show's history. If Green had played it safe and used a more conventional voice for Chris, the character might not have been as memorable or distinctive. Chris's unusual voice is part of what makes him stand out. When you hear that voice, you immediately know it's Chris Griffin. It's become an iconic part of the show, and it all happened because Seth Green was willing to take a risk, and his friend dared him to do something bold. For fans of The Silence of the Lambs, the connection might seem strange or even inappropriate. Buffalo Bill is a character from a serious, disturbing film about horrible crimes. Using that character as inspiration for a cartoon comedy could seem disrespectful to the source material, but it's also a testament to the versatility of voice acting. Seth Green found something in that performance that could be adapted and transformed into something completely different. He saw past the horror and found a vocal quality that could work in a totally different context. The episode where Meg shows the video of Chris doing the Buffalo Bill dance aired years after Chris was established as a character. By that point, viewers had been hearing Chris's voice for a long time without knowing its origin. The reveal was a reward for longtime fans and a fun Easter egg that added another layer to the show's history. It showed that Family Guy's creators remembered where Chris's voice came from and weren't afraid to make a joke about it. Today, when new viewers discover Family Guy and hear Chris Griffin speak, they're hearing a voice that's based on a dare, a friend's challenge, and a bold audition choice. They're hearing Seth Green's interpretation of a horror movie villain transformed into the voice of a lovable, dim-witted teenager. It's one of the strangest origin stories for a cartoon character's voice, and it's a perfect example of how creativity in entertainment can come from the most unexpected places. Seth Green took a dare, did an impression of Buffalo Bill, and ended up creating one of the most distinctive voices in animated television. And then, years later, Family Guy made a joke about it, bringing the whole story full circle in the most meta way possible. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Quohog, Rhode Island, the fictional town modeled after Cranston. Every television show needs a setting, a place where the characters live and where the stories happen. Some shows use real cities like New York or Los Angeles. Other shows create fictional towns that feel real even though they don't actually exist. Family Guy takes place in a fictional city called Quohog, Rhode Island. But even though Quohog isn't a real place you can visit, it's based very closely on real locations in Rhode Island. The creator of the show lived there, studied there, and used his memories and experiences to build a cartoon version of the state. Seth MacFarlane, who created Family Guy, went to college in Rhode Island. He attended the Rhode Island School of Design, which people usually call RISD. It's a famous art school located in Providence, the capital city of Rhode Island. MacFarlane studied animation there in the 1,990 seconds, learning the skills that would eventually help him create Family Guy. During his years as a student, he lived in Providence, walked around the city, met local people, and absorbed the culture and atmosphere of Rhode Island. Those years in Providence had a huge impact on how MacFarlane would later create Family Guy. When Fox gave him the chance to make his own animated series, he needed to decide where the show would take place. He could have set it anywhere in America. He could have chosen a big, famous city or a generic suburban town that could be anywhere. But instead, MacFarlane chose to base the show in Rhode Island, using the state he knew from his college years as the foundation for Family Guy's world. In an interview with WNAC-TV, the Fox television station in Providence, MacFarlane confirmed exactly which Rhode Island city Quohog is modeled after. He said the town is based on Cranston. Cranston is a city right next to Providence, part of the same metropolitan area. It has a population of around 80,000 people, making it the second or third largest city in Rhode Island. It's a real place with real neighborhoods, real schools, and real families living there. But Quohog isn't just Cranston. It's really a combination of several Rhode Island locations blended together into one fictional city. The show includes references to many real places throughout Rhode Island, mixing them all into the world of Quohog. This creates a setting that feels authentic to people who know Rhode Island while also being its own unique place. One of the most consistent visual references to Rhode Island appears in nearly every episode of Family Guy. If you watch carefully, you'll often see a skyline in the background of outdoor scenes. This isn't a random collection of buildings that the animators made up. It's the actual Providence skyline, the real buildings that you can see if you're in Providence and look at the downtown area. The skyline shown in Family Guy features 3 specific buildings. From left to right, they are 1 Financial Plaza, 50 Kennedy Plaza, and the Industrial National Bank Building. These are real structures in downtown Providence, and they're recognizable to anyone who knows the city. The Industrial National Bank Building is particularly distinctive because it has an Art Deco design and is one of the tallest buildings in Providence. By including this real skyline in the cartoon, Family Guy constantly reminds viewers that even though Quohog is fictional, it's connected to a real place. The angle at which these buildings are shown is also significant. Based on how the skyline appears in the show, Quohog would have to be located west of downtown Providence. This placement is consistent with where Cranston actually is in relation to Providence. Cranston sits to the west and southwest of Providence, so if you were standing in Cranston and looking toward downtown Providence, you would see the skyline at roughly the same angle shown in Family Guy. But here's an interesting detail. The name Quohog itself has a specific origin story that shows just how much thought went into creating this fictional town. The name was chosen by Danny Smith, one of the writers on Family Guy, and the reason he picked this particular name has to do with a bad experience he had years before Family Guy even existed. Before working on Family Guy, Danny Smith was a writer on a show called Nurses. This was a comedy series that aired in the early 1,990 seconds. While writing for that show, Smith made a joke about Pawtucket, which is a real city in Rhode Island. The joke was probably just a throwaway line, a simple gag that Smith thought nothing of at the time. It seemed harmless, just another joke in a script. But the people of Pawtucket didn't think it was harmless. The mayor of Pawtucket saw or heard about the joke and was offended. The mayor complained publicly about it, and the complaint got picked up by local talk radio stations in Rhode Island. Smith, who was from Rhode Island himself, suddenly found himself being vilified on the radio in his home state. People were calling in to complain about him. The joke that seemed so innocent had turned into a controversy. Smith later described how he felt during this experience. He said he had visions of people from Pawtucket chasing him down Benefit Street with pitchforks and torches. Benefit Street is a famous historic street in Providence, so this was Smith's way of saying he imagined angry Rhode Islanders literally hunting him down. It was probably an exaggeration, but the experience clearly left an impression on him. When Smith started working on Family Guy years later, the show needed a setting. Fox had told Seth MacFarlane and the writing team that they wanted the show to be specific to one town or region. They didn't want it to be set in a generic anywhere USA location. MacFarlane and Smith knew they wanted to use Rhode Island because of MacFarlane's time living there. The state had a specific culture, specific landmarks, and a specific way of talking that they wanted to capture in the show. But Smith remembered what had happened with the Pawtucket joke. He didn't want to go through that again. He didn't want to risk making another Rhode Island town angry by using their real name and then making jokes about them. So Smith came up with a solution. They would create a completely fictional town name. That way, they could still set the show in Rhode Island, still reference real places and use real landmarks, but the actual town where the Griffins lived would be made up. Smith chose the name Quohog. This is a real word, but it's not the name of any town in Rhode Island. A quohog is actually a type of clam. Specifically, it's a hard-shell clam that's found along the Atlantic coast, including around Rhode Island. Quohogs are a significant part of New England culture, especially in coastal areas. They're used in clam chowder and other local dishes. The word quahog itself comes from the Narragansett language, spoken by Native Americans who lived in the Rhode Island area long before European settlers arrived. By naming the town Quohog, Smith accomplished several things. First, he avoided using any real town name, which meant no real mayor could get upset about jokes. Second, he used a word that was authentically connected to Rhode Island and New England, so the name felt appropriate for the setting. Third, he chose something that sounded a bit funny when you say it out loud, which fit the tone of Family Guy. Some DVD releases of Family Guy have made references to a real place called Quohog, Rhode Island. This is an actual location, a tiny village area within the town of Charlestown in southern Rhode Island. Quohog is where the word Quahog originally comes from in the Narragansett language. Some people in Quohog even refer to their home as Quohog for short. But Quohog is very small, just a few hundred people, and it's nowhere near Providence, where the skyline visible in Family Guy would be. So while there's a linguistic connection, the fictional Quohog isn't really based on Quohog. The choice to create a fictional town name while keeping everything else authentic to Rhode Island created an interesting situation. Family Guy constantly references real Rhode Island places, people, and culture. The show mentions real towns like Pawtucket, Warwick, and Newport. It shows real landmarks and uses real Rhode Island businesses and institutions as inspiration for locations in the show. For example, the Pawtucket Patriot Brewery, where Peter works, is obviously named after Pawtucket, the real Rhode Island city. Pawtucket is famous for having breweries and manufacturing. There's also a real beer from Rhode Island called Narragansett that's very popular locally, so Pawtucket Patriot is probably inspired partly by that. The show named a junior high school after Buddy Cianci, who was a real and very controversial mayor of Providence. Cianci was mayor for many years and was known for being colorful, charismatic, and eventually going to prison for corruption. He's a Rhode Island legend, and using his name for a school in the show is a very Rhode Island thing to do. James Woods Regional High School, the high school that Chris and Meg attend, is named after the actor James Woods. Woods isn't just a random celebrity. He was actually raised in Warwick, Rhode Island, so he has a real connection to the state. Later in the show, the high school gets renamed to Adam West High School after the actor Adam West, who voiced the mayor of Quohog, passed away. Even the street where the Griffins live has a Rhode Island connection. They live at 31 Spooner Street. According to Seth MacFarlane, Spooner Street is named after Spooner Hill Road in Connecticut, which is near where MacFarlane grew up. But there's also a real 31 Spooner Street in Providence, Rhode Island, located just west of Roger Williams Park. This is another example of the show blending real locations with fictional elements. The show's attention to Rhode Island detail goes beyond just naming places. Family Guy has captured certain aspects of Rhode Island culture and the way Rhode Island people talk. The accent that some characters use, particularly how they pronounce their R's, is based on the real Rhode Island accent. People from Rhode Island often have a specific way of talking that's similar to, but distinct from, the Boston accent. MacFarlane heard this accent during his time at Rhode and incorporated it into the show. The show has also referenced specific Rhode Island traditions, foods, and cultural touchstones that only people from the area would really understand. This level of detail makes Rhode Islanders feel like the show is honoring their state, even when it's making fun of it. And because Quohog is fictional, Rhode Islanders can laugh at the jokes without feeling like their specific town is being insulted. For people who don't live in Rhode Island, Quohog just seems like a typical New England town. It has all the elements you'd expect: a downtown area, suburban neighborhoods, local businesses, and a mix of different kinds of people. The fact that it's based on real Rhode Island locations doesn't really matter to viewers in California or Texas or anywhere else. Quohog works as a setting regardless of whether you understand the Rhode Island references. But for Rhode Islanders, watching Family Guy is a completely different experience. They recognize the landmarks. They understand the cultural references. They see their state being represented on a nationally broadcast television show, which is exciting for people from a small state that doesn't get a lot of attention. Even though the show makes fun of Rhode Island sometimes, most Rhode Islanders seem to appreciate that their state is being featured at all. The creation of Quohog shows how writers can learn from their mistakes and find creative solutions to problems. Danny Smith had a bad experience with a joke about a real Rhode Island town, so he made sure that wouldn't happen again by inventing a fictional town. But he didn't just pick any random name. He chose something that was linguistically and culturally connected to Rhode Island, something that felt authentic even though it was made up. Seth MacFarlane's decision to base the show in Rhode Island also shows how personal experiences shape creative work. He could have set Family Guy anywhere, but he chose to honor the place where he went to college and became an animator. His memories of Providence, his observations of Rhode Island culture, and his affection for the state all contributed to creating Quohog. Today, Quohog feels like a real place to fans of Family Guy, even though you can't find it on any map. People talk about Quohog like it's a real city. They discuss its geography, its businesses, and its residents as if they could actually visit. In a way, Quohog has become real through the show, existing in the collective imagination of millions of viewers who have spent hundreds of hours watching stories set there. The fictional town of Quohog, based on the real city of Cranston, with the real Providence skyline in the background, and named after a type of clam to avoid upsetting a real mayor, is a perfect example of how fiction and reality blend together in television. It's real enough to feel authentic, fictional enough to allow creative freedom, and Rhode Island enough to honor the place that inspired it. Danny Smith wanted to avoid making another Rhode Island town angry, so he created Quohog, and in doing so, he helped create one of the most recognizable fictional locations in animated television. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to how Mila Kunis replaced Lacey Chabert as Meg and nobody noticed. Changing actors in the middle of a television show is always risky. Fans get used to hearing a character sound a certain way, and when that voice suddenly changes, people notice. They complain. They say the new voice doesn't sound right. Sometimes they even stop watching the show because the change bothers them so much. But occasionally, a replacement happens so smoothly that most viewers don't even realize it occurred. That's exactly what happened with Meg Griffin on Family Guy when Mila Kunis took over the role from Lacey Chabert, and hardly anyone noticed the switch. When Family Guy first premiered in January 1999, Meg Griffin was voiced by Lacey Chabert. Chabert was a young actress who was already well known at the time, primarily for her role on a popular drama series called Party of Five. That show had been on the air since 1994 and was a big success. Chabert played Claudia Salinger, one of 5 siblings trying to stay together as a family after their parents died in a car accident. It was a serious, emotional show that dealt with real issues, very different from the crude comedy of Family Guy. Chabert was only 16 years old when she started voicing Meg, but she was already an experienced actress. She had been working in television and movies since she was a child. Before Party of Five, she had done voice work for cartoon shows and had appeared in various TV series. She had the skills and experience needed to voice an animated character, and she brought those skills to Meg Griffin during Family Guy's first season. But Chabert had a problem. She was extremely busy. Party of Five was still in production, and it required a lot of her time and energy. The show filmed in Los Angeles, and Chabert had to be available for rehearsals, filming, and all the other work that goes into making a television drama. On top of that, Chabert was still a teenager, which meant she had to balance her acting career with school. California has strict laws about child actors and education. Young actors are required to spend a certain amount of time on schoolwork every day, even when they're working on TV shows or movies. Voice acting for an animated show also takes time, even though it might not seem like it would. When you voice a cartoon character, you have to go to a recording studio, sometimes multiple times, for a single episode. You read through the script, record your lines, do multiple takes to get different versions, and work with the director to make sure the performance matches what they want. For someone as busy as Lacey Chabert, fitting in these recording sessions on top of everything else became too difficult. After the first season of Family Guy ended, Chabert made a decision. She couldn't continue voicing Meg Griffin. Between Party of Five, her schoolwork, and her other commitments, there simply wasn't enough time. She had to choose, and she chose to focus on Party of Five and her education. Family Guy would need to find someone else to voice Meg for the second season. This created a challenge for Seth MacFarlane and the Family Guy team. They needed to find a new voice actress for Meg, one of the main characters on the show. The new actress would need to sound similar enough to Lacey Chabert that viewers wouldn't be too thrown off by the change, but she would also need to make the role her own and potentially voice Meg for many years if the show continued. The audition process began, and many actresses came in to try out for the role. Among them was Mila Kunis, a young actress who was 18 years old at the time. Like Chabert, Kunis was already working on a successful TV show. She had a main role on That 70 Seconds Show, a sitcom that had started in 1998 and would run for 8 seasons. Kunis played Jackie Burkhart, a vain, self-centered teenage girl who was both annoying and somehow lovable. The character was very different from Meg Griffin, but it showed that Kunis could handle playing a teenage character with distinct personality traits. Kunis came in to audition for Meg, reading lines from the script and trying to capture the character's voice and personality. After her first audition, Seth MacFarlane wasn't completely satisfied. He didn't reject Kunis, but he didn't hire her on the spot either. Instead, he called her back and gave her specific direction. He told her to speak more slowly. Kunis's natural way of talking was apparently too fast for what MacFarlane wanted for Meg. He needed the delivery to be a bit slower, more deliberate. Kunis took this feedback and came back for another audition. This time, she spoke more slowly, trying to match what MacFarlane had asked for. But MacFarlane still wasn't completely happy. He gave her another note: enunciate more. This means he wanted her to pronounce her words more clearly, to make sure each syllable was distinct and understandable. Voice acting requires very clear speech because the audience can't see your face or body language. They only have the voice to understand the character, so every word needs to come through clearly. This back and forth audition process can be frustrating for actors. Being called back multiple times and given detailed notes about how to adjust your performance might feel discouraging. Some actors might have given up or decided the role wasn't worth the effort, but Kunis kept working at it. She practiced speaking slower and enunciating more clearly. She adjusted her performance based on MacFarlane's feedback. Finally, Kunis felt confident that she had figured out what MacFarlane wanted. She told him that she had it under control, that she understood how to voice Meg the way he envisioned. MacFarlane believed her and decided to give her the job. Mila Kunis became the new voice of Meg Griffin, starting with the second season of Family Guy. The episode where Kunis first voiced Meg was called Da Boom, and it was the third episode of the second season. This episode aired on the 26th of December 1999, the day after Christmas. The episode is memorable for several reasons. It's set during the Y2K crisis, when people worried that computers would malfunction when the calendar changed from 1999 to 2000. In the episode, those fears come true, and the world basically ends in a nuclear disaster. The episode also introduced Ernie the Giant Chicken, who would become one of Family Guy's most recurring characters. But for the history of the show, Da Boom is most significant because it was Mila Kunis's debut as Meg. And here's the remarkable thing: most viewers didn't notice the change. People watched the episode, enjoyed the story about the Y2K apocalypse, laughed at the jokes, and didn't realize that Meg sounded different. The transition from Lacey Chabert to Mila Kunis was so smooth that it didn't disrupt the show at all. Why didn't people notice? There are several reasons. First, Meg isn't the most prominent character in Family Guy. The show focuses much more on Peter, the father, and Stewie, the baby genius. Brian the dog also gets a lot of attention. Lois, the mother, has her own storylines. Meg, on the other hand, is often pushed to the background. She's the teenage daughter who gets ignored by her family and mistreated by everyone around her. This is actually part of her character's identity. Meg is the one nobody pays attention to, so it's almost fitting that nobody noticed when her voice changed. Second, the change happened early enough in the show's run that viewers hadn't had years to get used to Chabert's voice. Family Guy had only aired one season before the switch happened. That's about 15 episodes where Chabert voiced Meg. Compare that to shows where a character has the same voice for many years before being replaced. In those cases, the change is much more jarring because viewers have heard that voice hundreds of times. With Meg, Chabert only voiced her for one season, so there wasn't as much time for viewers to form a strong attachment to that specific sound. Third, Kunis did an excellent job of matching the general tone and style that Chabert had established. She didn't try to do an exact impression of Chabert's voice, but she captured the same feeling. Meg still sounded like a teenage girl, still had the same general personality in her voice. The specific sound was different if you listened closely, but the overall impression was similar enough that casual viewers didn't pick up on it. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, this was 1999, before the age of internet forums, social media, and instant communication about every detail of TV shows. Today, if a show changed voice actors, fans would notice immediately and start discussing it online within minutes. They'd post side-by-side comparisons, debate whether the new voice was better or worse, and create entire threads analyzing the change. But in 1999, most viewers didn't have easy ways to talk about these things with other fans. You watched the show, maybe discussed it with friends or family, and that was it. There was no Twitter, no Reddit, no YouTube videos breaking down every aspect of the episode. Mila Kunis went on to voice Meg Griffin for the rest of Family Guy's run. She's now been Meg for over 2 decades, voicing the character in hundreds of episodes. She was Meg when the show got canceled the first time. She was Meg when it came back. She's been Meg through all the controversies, all the changes, and all the different directions the show has taken over the years. For most fans, Kunis is Meg Griffin. They don't remember or don't know that anyone else ever voiced the character. Lacey Chabert, meanwhile, went on to have a successful career in other areas. Party of Five ended in 2000, and Chabert moved on to other projects. She did more voice work, including voicing Eliza Thornberry in The Wild Thornberrys, another animated series. She also became very successful in made-for-TV movies, particularly Hallmark Channel romantic movies. Chabert has appeared in dozens of these feel-good, wholesome films and has become one of the most popular actresses in that genre. Chabert has occasionally been asked about her time on Family Guy in interviews. She's always been gracious about it, acknowledging that she was the original Meg, but understanding that Mila Kunis has made the role her own. There doesn't seem to be any bad feelings about the replacement. It was simply a practical decision made because Chabert was too busy with other commitments. Kunis has also talked about taking over the role in various interviews. She's mentioned the audition process and how Seth MacFarlane pushed her to adjust her performance. She's expressed appreciation for getting the role and has said she enjoys voicing Meg, even though Meg is probably the least appreciated character in the Griffin family within the show's universe. The character of Meg has evolved over the years, and some of that evolution is due to Kunis's interpretation. In the early seasons, Meg was just an unpopular teenage girl, the kind of character you'd find on many sitcoms. But as the show went on, Meg became more and more of a punching bag for the other characters. Her family treats her terribly. Her father openly expresses that he doesn't love her. Her mother ignores her. Her brothers mock her. Even characters outside the family are cruel to Meg for no real reason. This development of Meg as the family scapegoat has become one of the defining aspects of her character. Some fans find it funny, appreciating the dark humor of a character who exists just to be mistreated. Other fans find it mean-spirited and think the show goes too far with the Meg abuse. But regardless of how people feel about it, this is what Meg has become, and Mila Kunis has voiced all of it. Kunis has had to perform some pretty degrading material for Meg over the years. She's had to voice scenes where Meg is insulted, rejected, humiliated, and treated as less than human by her own family. It's a testament to Kunis's skill as a voice actress that she can make these scenes work, finding the right tone that makes them play as comedy rather than just being sad or uncomfortable. There have been a few episodes that tried to give Meg more depth or show why she puts up with her family's treatment. Some episodes suggest that Meg actually holds the family together and that without her, as their scapegoat, they would turn on each other. Other episodes show Meg finally standing up for herself, though these moments of empowerment rarely last beyond that single episode. Through all of this, Kunis has remained committed to the role. She's balanced voicing Meg with a successful movie career, appearing in films like Black Swan, Bad Moms, Ted, and many others. She's become one of the most recognizable actresses in Hollywood, but she still makes time to record lines for a cartoon character that gets disrespected constantly on the show. The replacement of Lacey Chabert with Mila Kunis is now a piece of Family Guy trivia that many fans don't know. New viewers discovering the show have no idea that Meg ever sounded different. They hear Kunis's voice from the beginning if they watch the show in order, and they might not even realize there was a change after the first season. Even some longtime fans don't know about the switch because it happened so seamlessly. In the world of animation, voice actor replacements are actually fairly common. Characters on long-running shows sometimes need new voices when actors die, retire, or become unavailable. But it's rare for a replacement to happen so early in a show's run and be so unnoticeable to the audience. Usually, when a main character gets a new voice, fans notice and react. With Meg, the transition was so smooth that it barely registered. This smoothness was partly due to luck and timing, but it was also due to the skill of everyone involved. Mila Kunis put in the work to adjust her performance based on MacFarlane's notes. MacFarlane knew what he wanted and was willing to work with Kunis until she got it right. The show's creators decided not to make a big deal out of the change, not calling attention to it or addressing it on the show. They just made the switch and moved forward. Looking back, it's clear that hiring Mila Kunis was the right decision. She's been a consistent, reliable performer on Family Guy for over 2 decades. She's helped define who Meg Griffin is as a character, even if that character is defined largely by being ignored and mistreated. Kunis took a role that Lacey Chabert started and made it her own, creating a voice and performance that has become inseparable from the character. The story of Meg's voice change is a reminder that sometimes the biggest changes in a show are the ones people don't notice. Lacey Chabert to Mila Kunis was a complete replacement of one of the main characters, but it happened so smoothly that it might as well have never happened at all. Kunis became Meg, Chabert moved on to other successes, and Family Guy continued with barely a ripple. It's one of the most successful voice actor replacements in television history, proving that with the right casting and the right approach, you can change a fundamental element of a show without losing your audience. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.